power is out, and my phone battery is at about 24%.
¿Qué pasa?
Hello, people.
Hello.
Good morning, Heiner. He's with us here.
You guys, you probably saw on the text. That spoke up because my phone, but the power in the house is out again. So I'm beginning to be a little bit more concerned about stability here. So anyway, I'm going to be pretty ineffective probably as a host. I was going to talk about focus again. I'm going to make yes, so I'm going to be hosted today. Any volunteers before I just pick someone? Because I'm likely battery to run out after about 20 more percent.
I only heard a little bit of that, maybe, but I can be host if that's needed, or.
Okay, I'll make the post.
So how's it going there, Joshua? Are you outside in the mountains?
Yes, sir. Going good.
Stacy's with us too. Hello. Yeah,
Sorry,
Sam's been having some internet issues.
yeah, I saw on the text.
I think we can just go any direction we want, I guess. Alex is with us, but he just took a cup of coffee. He'll be back soon. And oh, there's Jaswinder. Hello. Good to see you, Jaswinder. Sam has been having a little bit of technical issues with the internet and with power, so he might not be.
I mean, I could be on my phone, but I'm not going to be very effective this way. I was going to talk about focus again, but you guys are free to talk about whatever you like.
I have something that's been on my mind. If I could ask it, then maybe there's some way it does become a barn raising issue. So usually people have like this project that they want to work on, or what I'm saying, they have a project they want to work on. But I want to know, where do people go to say what they need? Because I see a lot of people that are trying to solve problems for others, but I don't see the space where the others get to say, this is what would help me. Not within a project, like in general.
So if I may, I think that's legitimately part of fundraising, because originally and I would say this is one of them, where part of the focus is what you do and to solicit support and possibly to recruit, not necessarily to, let's say, uh, that project is the
We're not
level
really able to hear you. I don't know if anybody else could hear Sam. all-
It's very, yeah, it's very muddied, but I did pick up, I think there was something about, that he considered the barn racing
That
really
part I
should be
heard.
the place for that as well. That was clear. Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, it's very important. What do people need? Joshua,
I was just going
what are you thinking?
I've been trying to help out my clients, Stacy, and trying to help them get a place where they can ask questions because they're always asking on emails, and the questions are mixed with statements and mixed with other asks, and it's like, okay, can you do this for me, but then also this, and then this, but then also I just want to tell you about this, but then this. So I created a ticketing system, and it's really helping me. And the reason I'm saying that a ticketing system is it puts a number to the ask, so you can break the ask into separate asks. And that way you have a ticket system means that there's an open and a close. So it's opened and then it's sitting in a repository for people to answer. But once the person that asked the ask says, okay, it's sufficient and I've got my answer, then it's closed. Otherwise it stays open. So just an open and a close on the ask.
Well,
that seems to be very helpful.
I'm also looking for a space that brings the two types together, where there's people that are building the technology and then maybe somebody like me. And I'll tell you what brought this up. I heard somebody give a demonstration of what they were working on. And in my mind, and again, understand, I don't know anything about how coding works, how technology works. I don't know anything about that. But I'm listening to what they've developed and I'm thinking, is this something that could be used in the media to trace the origins of stories? Is this, I'm thinking, where else could these things be applied? And I would love a space where that kind of conversation would make some sense. And even if I say something that I don't necessarily understand, it might spark something in somebody else who's going to go on with whatever they develop. Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, I don't know if this will work. This is just an idea, but there is a space called Quora, and I believe you can hashtag the question. So if we hashtagged it GCC or some hashtag ask GCC, then we can use their forum to question answers, because there's thousands of people on there that could ask and answer. But then as a community, we could click the GCC hashtag inside of Quora and get all of the asks that a GCC ask. Just an idea to use a system that's already standing.
Yeah, we could do a round today as well, each saying a few things. If we have anything about what we would want help with, for example, or if we have an idea about what are the other areas that some interesting thing can be applied. Yeah, I'd really love to hear what also Jaswinder and Joshua, what would you most like to focus on today? And Alex, of course. Maybe that could be a good way to get started. Alex, your sound seems to be off. No sound on Alex as far as I can hear. Now we hear you. Good.
Well, I was focusing on asking questions on Google, because if you put a question mark after the ask, Google treats it differently. Google doesn't treat it like a normal search. It's got a question mark after it. Google will put it into the AI and search it with the algorithm and bring up answers as if you asked an AI robot a question. It's best to answer it. And a lot of the links go to Quora. Often answer questions.
Yeah, there's all kinds of questions and answers there. I've seen a few.
Well, one of them was, how do I make a web page? I was directed to the tutorials at Squarespace and Wix. Deeply. Tutorials at WordPress even. I think Squarespace, some of the corporations spend more money than others on their tutorials. Some of them are so simple to use, there's hardly any tutorial. They land you with the interface, and all you do is start working with it, dragging and dropping components from the libraries to build your website.
Would that be something you would like to look into today, or like, yeah, I'm a little curious, like if all of you have some specific thing you're burning for today.
It's how I learned. It's how I learned to do it without having to know any programming. I got better at asking questions on Google. And watching those tutorials was sort of like intuitive, because if you've been playing computer games a lot, you get to know the shortcut keys anyway. And a lot of the guys that are developing web applications are designing these shortcut keys into the programming. A lot of them are quite the same. Navigating around a page with the cursors like the WASD, which is the keys you use when you're navigating in a game or a 3D virtual environment, even on Google Earth and maps and things like that. So that's that makes it a lot simpler. Once you're familiar with the keyboard, it becomes really easy. A lot of it's using with the mouse, drag and drop.
Yeah. Like finding shortcuts to navigate.
Yeah, right-clicking on a component often brings up a context menu. So right-click on everything. I do that a lot, even if it's something that doesn't look like it would have any response. I sometimes find there's a menu, an options menu. It's be save or delete or move, or you know what I mean. In graphics programs use them a lot when you want to change an image or delete or save or copy and paste.
Yeah.
So that's
need to keep it simple. So much information to maneuver through, you know.
Have you ever looked at the source code of a web page?
Yeah, I don't understand it.
You can copy it. It's a text document, isn't it? The source code's a text document. You can edit it with a text editor, and you can copy the whole thing and paste it onto another page. And when you publish that, it comes out like the page. It doesn't come out like the source code, but it's all just the text.
Yeah.
And most of it's pretty easy. HTML, there's nothing difficult about HTML. I could find. I got tripped up when I tried to do CSS, cascading style sheets. I found it more difficult because I didn't know how to program in Perl or JavaScript.
I'd like to have it like I could just talk to a program and say, this is how the page should look, and this is how it should work, and then some kind of machine can just do the whole thing. I wonder if like that would be such a simpler way.
I did that at Weebly. but I wasn't talking. I was clicking the options.
Yeah.
It says it was asking the user the questions, saying what kind of website, what kind of web page do you want, what kind of background do you want.
That, of course, when you see this, it reminds me of like this could be a theme. It's interesting to go into. Like, how could we? What would be the most simple way we could relate with databases, with computers in general, with information in general? I mean,
How do I network with the team? And if I use that question and create a web page with that question as the theme, I'll be able to copy it onto chat sessions and copy it onto comment boxes on Facebook and other places, other forums where people are discussing those topics. How to network, how to create a network and build a community.
exactly.
Link them together on a global internet site and link the bridges together to form the network.
Now I would love to hear also Jaswinder and Joshua. You got also have some ideas here. Well, you brought in lots of good ideas there, Alex. But what do you guys, do you have anything you'd like to go into? Oh, Heiner and Amanda. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Whoa, where are you guys?
I am in Berlin. I am on the border of Russia, China, and America. We are making world peace here. We're making agreements.
Whoa, you're world peacemakers.
We had spying quarters here with a tower with domes on top of it.
I'll show you.
Oh, it looks awesome. Yeah, look at that. That's a true work of art there.
I heard they didn't spy here. It was just for watching.
Yeah, yeah.
It was Big Brother watching us.
And I always
Really?
say, there it's nice. You can have great parties.
It's so picturesque in Berlin.
Luck.
I was there years ago. So many awesome buildings there. Look at that stuff.
We can send some photos later.
Yeah, you should definitely send some photos. It looks like really picturesque.
It
Because
is.
it's setting and we are freezing. We didn't have a Wi-Fi, so we are late with everything. And throw us out in 10 minutes.
Yeah, so we have to walk. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you. Have a good walk there.
I will.
Yeah.
We will.
I will
So-
show you a little side.
Ah,
sure
look
they
at that.
Oh yes, this is something very important. It says, eat your trains, your feta.
Eat
Yes.
your,
I see eat the rich.
eat the rich.
Eat your fetus. So you see, it's the place, just graffiti and murals, and it's a very nice place. Friends were running it sometime, but now they have some new owners, and the big tower over there is occupied now, and they have to put in fire protection and other things. But I now give you back to Amanda to say bye-bye.
Hi.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you. Have good agreements there.
Yeah. Enjoy the walk there. That was really awesome backgrounds.
Did we agree?
What the heck?
Jaswinder?
Did we agree to focus on Stacey's question?
No. We want to hear what Jaswinder had to say.
Yeah, we can just go do a little round first, and I will see where
It
it goes,
needs,
right?
it needs less salt. In the day of the internet, all help is available, right up to the expert level. Most of it is free nowadays. And it depends on what help you need and what you want to do with it as to where you should go. YouTube is very good. If you Google it, you normally end up with something on YouTube. And there is the MOOCs, which are degree level courses, again available for a pittance or free. And all the old data is available. You just have to keep digging till you find what you want.
We don't need
Jaswinder and Alex, I just show you one more round. There's a machine woman here who is totally transhuman. Closer. I think you can see it. You must see the hole. I'm going to be in front of it.
Yeah.
And then there's a tower. There's all towers here, and then there's the big tower.
Yeah.
And there's a sun.
And the sun setting. Also, that was it. We have all in pictures. Until later.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome scenery.
So if I could just respond to Jaswinder, because I think what I'm trying to say is I'm not specifically looking for help on any one thing. I'm looking for a space where there can be a flow of ideas between people that usually do not talk to each other. So they wouldn't hear these other perspectives. So almost like an imaginatorium where you say, wouldn't it be great if this, or is it possible to do this? So way more.
I think I know what you're talking about now. It's a bit more exact. I would suggest you go to the GCC, who are trying very hard to do that very thing.
Especially the GCC
So now-
barn racing meetings. I've heard the barn racing meetings are really great for just that.
So let me ask you. Let me ask you more.
This is the barn that Stacy wants to raise, is to find a space, safe space where everybody can come and ask their questions and have a rapport rather than a disagreement and an argument, and move forward. And
But I mean, but specifically, I mean of a more computer technical nature, because we do have those great conversations. Like, I have a question. I want to know, can you have a bot if you don't own the platform? For example, if not me, but if somebody wanted to create a bot that stepped in when they saw people were angry, can you do it on Facebook, or you need Facebook permission? Like, you have to work through Facebook. That's what I don't understand.
I think Joshua's the only one who might.
Alex might know.
you can have a bot that interrupts you wherever you want it to interrupt. For example, if we were to put it into our Zoom space, and that if we had the bot, it could turn us off, or it could interrupt and say, oh, I can see your tempers are rising. It all depends on the settings. And I doubt if you need Facebook's permission for that, because we're using a completely independent, I think the term is a standalone program here called Zoom. So if you ask Zoom to do that, they may do it. It's a case of making people aware of what the needs are, and they may provide the solutions. So if you want to have a completely different setup where we're all in charge, yeah, you can have a bot. And there are, as somebody, Alex has mentioned, there are lots of people who have put free software on the net, and you can Google for it and find the software you want and manipulate it to do what you want it to do. Free of charge. Like Linux is an excellent one that comes to mind. Ubuntu is another one. I mentioned just two that I've played with recently.
Right. What I'm specifically thinking of is there are a lot of people that feel that it's troublesome having people fighting on the internet over, let's say, political things. So my question is specifically focused on a bot that would indicate when there's some sort of major conflict so that people on call could actually go in as a human being and try to neutralize things or try to, I just want to know if it's possible.
That's very interesting. We could put this under co-visioning because let's just throw that question in. I'm interested in that too. Like, what will we do with a bot like that? So what's your reasoning for using it, for example? I mean, I kind of get a little bit of it, but like, what if we go even further? How can we imagine something like that really being helpful?
Well,
That's
first,
a really
I just
good
want to,
topic.
I do want to answer that, but I want to hear Alex. Looks like he has something pressing.
Alex.
You have something important?
I was putting up a page and I was entering the forum and the feedback form, something like that. And it asked me, it popped up a question and it said, do you want to moderate the conversation to be soft, medium or adult? And you could choose the level of language. That, if you chose the highest setting, adult, it puts in a list of words that are banned words. If somebody uses one of those words, they won't get their post posted. So, or you can use, if you choose moderate, then you'll get a bit of harsh language, and if you choose gentle, it'll block every swear word. Over.
Hello, good to see you, Sam.
Power just came back a few minutes ago.
Oh, great. So you can join us for the rest. Okay, I'll just have to shortly mention where we were. Heiner and Amanda checked in briefly. They were walking in Berlin, really picturesque scenery. And we've been having a few questions. And Stacy asked about, as you heard, a place to ask for help, but also exchange ideas. And Alex has been mentioning that about how we can find code various places on the internet. Jess Winders also mentioned that there's knowledge that's accessible for free, even very valuable knowledge, if you know where to look. And then Stacy asked about, could we have a bot, for example, that would recognize when people are angry, let's say in a Facebook conversation, and then it could, because that's a problem, that maybe an intervention could be a place then, for example. So that's kind of where we started off.
Analysing the conversation. It could interrupt and say, you're about to say something rude.
Yes, exactly.
Minority Report style.
Or could we like have our own bot that we could create ourselves, which would help us?
The only thing I'd like to add to what Alex has said, just to augment that, is that there is already software on social media sites to detect terrorists. And if they're exchanging information and there are bots looking for certain phrases and words and combinations of words, which then are reported to authorities who may want to check them out. So it's the interpretation of the information that requires attention, and that needs a human interface with the information. And to come back to the Stacy's reasoning, and I've said this all along since I've been on GCC, is that I reserve the right to interpret the information incoming to me the way that I perceive it, regardless of how it's put out. So the accuracy of that perception as to what to do with that information rests with me. I take responsibility for that. If I raise the stake levels from being gentle batter to saying that I don't agree with your phraseology, and I want to take this to the next level, right up to full anger, I take responsibility for that. There are reasons behind that, if you're interested. Excuse me. And I reserve the right to use this methodology. And I do realize it causes a great deal of consternation, so I'm very wary of using it, but I do find that there are times when it has to be. And I'll just reiterate, if you want the reasons, you can have them. If you don't want them, I'm complete. Thank you.
So one comment, then another question. I actually am surprised that you express it that way, and I'm taking responsibility for my response, by the way, in that you say you reserve the right to interpret information the way you do. My thought that goes through my head when I hear that is, why isn't that something everybody would do, wants to do, want others to do? You know, why is it that you have to, in a sense, reserve the right to do that? I think it's a commentary on our culture. But before I go deep into that one, my other question is, shall we just let this conversation flow, or shall we have it some focus? Have some focus for it. Over.
One
That's a
my
vote
impression.
on it.
What was that you said?
Take a vote on it. We're half an hour into the program without any.
Yeah, I'm inclined to let it go since I was late, so I don't want to usurp the meeting. I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm allowing this conversation to flow, and I'm going to step.
How valuable is it to continue or to disrupt or interrupt? You can put it to a vote.
Well, as moderator of barn raising, I'm voting to just let this conversation go. I
second that. Let it
I'm
continue.
abstaining from the vote.
I'm open for many things, but I'm positive, especially to letting it continue. And I also feel that this is close to co-visioning space. So that might be something I would go a little into. What do you think?
I like the idea of letting it flow. It's like letting it go. When I was working out how to learn something, I realised that the old ideas that were no longer serving me, I had to let go of. Getting into the flow by letting go.
I want to change my vote because I understand it differently. I would like to focus on what Glenn was saying about how would we use these bots if we could? Like, what are some ways that we could use it? Because if we start thinking about that, then maybe we could also think about the negative effects that don't immediately come to mind. So I'm voting to stay focused on that.
And good to see Colin might be with us too. Sorry, what were you going to say, Sam?
Since Jaswinder asked for a vote, I was just curious, anybody who wants to vote should please express it now. Otherwise, I think the conversation will flow. And then we'll consider whether or not we want to focus on Stacy's suggested focus. Sorry, I'm moderating. I'm going to step back. Glenn, you're moderator today. I'm going to shut up now and just be a participant.
I like the idea of the questions and answers. I think it's a super idea.
I like that too. We could test it. Well, I'm open for whatever it goes, but I'm also going to sort of bring in a few of the things that I find interesting, and I mean, I also feel it's very interesting with this direction of how could this and that or whatever really be used. But specifically, what I mean is a general focus on what is possible in the many futures that are the better futures, let's say. And it can really go in any way. And any kind of idea can be interesting, even if it's an incomplete idea. So, and I think this relates to what Eric Weinstein also is doing with this, with the portal, because I looked at that today, and I think that a part of what he sees there's a need for is a place and a space to explore these cutting edge ideas. And he makes the observation that these cutting edge ideas are being resisted by the academy, and they're being resisted by all kinds of institutions. So at the moment, there isn't really a space for the exploring together the really cutting edge ideas in a way where we can be playful and we can come with very speculative suggestions, and we know they're speculative, but the point is that they might have a potential if we work with them. And this is where appreciative inquiry comes right to the heart of it, actually, because that could be an alternative operating way. I mean, a model for thinking as also an alternative to, let's say, critical thinking, where you always try to look for weaknesses. But maybe it's a better model to look for what are the possible applications of this idea, or this observation, or this sharing, or whatever any of us bring or anybody else's brings. What could be like the potential of it, and what could be the knowledge of the future? And this is what this portal is looking into. And I think that this kind of a space, this is the sort of space which is perfect for really exploring the cutting edge ideas in a playful way, in an imaginative way, in a co-visioning way, where we're really looking at visions. So yeah, I'm still really interested in the whole field of co-visioning to this, because it really seems to fit into it. But for me, I just want to go wherever it goes. But I'm definitely throwing that out, that it's really interesting. I find it a space for exploring what's possible. And I think I agree with what I heard, that there aren't many of those spaces today. There's a very big need for something like that. Yeah, I'm finished with this.
Stacy was waiting to say something before I raised my hand. I give way to Stacy.
I'll be quick. Hey, I just wanted to say that I remember once talking to somebody, I'll call them tech person, and I remember saying, I wish there was something where I could just write in script and it would go onto the computer. And I was immediately shut down. Nobody would use that. There's no reason for it. But there is a reason for it, because I would use it.
I would use it too.
And we already know that some sort of learning of a stronger, better nature happens when you're writing script than it does when you're typing into a computer. So my point is, if people that think like me aren't in the spaces with people that don't think like me, how are they going to create what people like me need? Now I'm turning it over to Jess.
Jess Windsor, your sound is off.
I do apologize. I did click that button, and maybe I didn't. I wasn't looking at what I was clicking. Yeah, there is a narrator and a transcript program available that will record whatever you're saying immediately on whatever format you're using, be it Word or Notepad or whatever. I did start wanting to use that some years ago, and then I didn't pursue it because there were some changes ongoing. Oh yeah, this business with Windows 7 and Windows 10 and the changeover, that's still ongoing. And I have had to force myself to change to Windows 10. It's not a change I wanted. So if we're continuing the original conversation, I take it that's the consensus now? Or are we, okay.
Take it wherever you want to go.
No, it's not wherever I want to go. This is one of the things that I keep hearing. The word infinity comes to mind, and I'm of the opinion on the other side, I don't see that we can have, for argument's sake, infinite number of choices. And that this was something that came up yesterday, was about destiny. That each individual has a control over their own destiny. We have this freedom. And there are a lot of arguments about that. I'm not talking about just discussions or general appraisals. These arguments can get quite heated because of the interpretations of the words we use and the words and the phrases given to us by learned people, by enlightened people even. And even the meaning of the word enlightened has changed. All the words that I grew up with as a youngster at school have changed. And all the scriptures are normally written in a dead language. And as soon as you change those scriptures, interpret them into a living language, they change over time. So the original meaning, what it was imparted to us, has changed. Therefore, we are not doing what we were meant to do. Hence, I reserve the right to interpret information incoming to me the way I see it and not the way the preceptor or the other person is giving it to me for those reasons mentioned and other reasons, and especially innuendos. And they are triggering. And I'm not just meaning to be triggered in a normal, I'll respond to that way. It means I'm going to attack you because I feel threatened or attacked already. And if you don't back off, I will take this right to the highest level where either one of us backs off or we don't, and maybe we'll never talk again. There is an end to it, a dot to be put somewhere before we go to war. And war is a very bad thing, as we know. But on the other hand, we wouldn't be here if we hadn't had all the wars we have had, because they've increased production, they've increased our knowledge, and they've increased our ability to produce stuff like this when it's been needed under extreme pressure, and we're using it today. So my answer there is that every aspect of our evolution, of our involvement, it has a purpose, and that purpose can be good or it can be bad. It's our interpretation, and I don't see anything as bad. Judgment is gone. I am no longer judging. I'm just responding.
So, Jasper, did you agree that there is a freedom to act consciously? Do you see it that way?
There is a very small amount of freedom, and that is involved in what I've just said.
And maybe there's a possibility for a greater freedom.
Well, did you ask to be born?
Well, as soon as the war begins, the rules get thrown out the window. And it's
I didn't understand that. I was just responding to Glenn. You know, if there is freedom, and then you have to ask the question, well, how much freedom is that? And my first question is, if I didn't ask to be born, what freedom do I have? Is my lifespan more or less preset? at every level of life, as a person grows up, windows of opportunity open at a certain age, and at a certain age thereafter, they close. And by the time I reach my age, there are very few windows of opportunity unless I'm extremely rich and I can reopen them. So where's the freedom?
Okay, just before you go, Colin, I'll just throw in a question. Let's say this moment I say, I don't have any freedom, I'm conditioned by everything beyond me. But now I change my mind and now I say, I'm now free to choose how to be. There's a difference, isn't it? Between the first situation and the second one. So does that mean that if I say that I'm free to choose how to be, then I claim that freedom in some sense? That's the question I'll just throw out.
Okay. Is that the topic for today?
It's a kind of free-flowing conversation, so yeah, I'd love to just hear whatever you're thinking.
Okay. Well, when I first joined, you guys were talking about letting Stacy do some questioning. That sounded very interesting. I noted Sam is not moderating today, which is interesting. Those are all free choices, and I got a feeling from Jazz. Nice to see you, Jazz, by the way. I haven't seen you in a while. Glad to see you. That if things change, then they're invalidated. I take great exception to that. I think everything is an experiment of some sort. We're spinning through space in a vortex with a very anthropomorphic and our context and our world views are very much based on where we're born. Interesting enough that we don't have a choice where we're born, but even more than that, where we're born has a big deal to how we're raised. I think the analogy is our minds are like sponges, and we absorb what's around us, be it kind or cruel, all things equal. What is a good question? You ask somebody from different places in the world, they'll have a different response. Another I think grounding thought is that if you take a child from any culture and raise it in a different culture, it'll be basically the culture that it's raised in, regardless of where the child was born. So that goes to prove that it's not actually hardwired as far as that goes. So, we're sponges and we absorb what's around us, and we need good examples. We need good leadership. And I think above all, one of the nice things here is that there's a positive attitude to actually go about these questionings. So I'm interested to hear what Stacy has for questions. Anyway, I'll say that. Thank you.
You've asked a few questions already, Stacy. So, but I'd love to hear some more. Don't you wanna? Joshua, do you have anything? You've been quietly listening there for a while.
Yeah, I do have something. I didn't mean to interrupt, Alex. When Joss Winter asked, did we ask if we were born? I didn't hear anyone answer that question. So I was waiting for other people to answer that question. I thought that was a really good question. Did you ask to be born? I thought that was a really great place to start something off. But go ahead, Alex.
Or did you ask to be raised in a certain culture? Even better.
I think both.
Yeah, some people believe that and some don't.
The first question kind of implies the last as well. Did you ask to be born?
I was thinking about the global united humanity, where we're all members of a global corporation. You could call it the global corporation. You're automatically a shareholder. Every living person on the planet is automatically a shareholder in the global corporation.
So can we say that we already are there already is a global corporation. It's just that it's functioning in a certain way. It's not necessarily a harmonious way, but there already is a global, you know, interaction. It's happening one way or another, right?
Things are happening, but an official global corporation is something that's got to be established, and you need identification to prove you're a member, and how long you've been a member, and what pages you've been visiting, what conversations you've been involved with, so that the AI knows how to send you advertisements. They're all doing it. Over.
Both Sam and Josh has things here.
You're the moderator. You're the facilitator.
Well, you go first, Josh. What are
I'm
your
just waiting for
thoughts?
I just wanted to go around the room. There was 2 questions I heard that were asked that didn't get answered. One was, what do we want to talk about? And then Amanda and Heiner popped in. So you were going to get to me and Joss Winder, and then Colin popped in. So we haven't even asked Joss Winder, myself, or Colin what they would like to talk about. Also, I noticed that Sam's power was out, but now it's back on. So I just want to be, my goal and my ask for the group right now is we could stay present and be in a presencing space where we can go around the room and ask people where they're at, because we never did a check-in and it was sort of haphazard because of the power. And then now I think the power is fixed, Sam, is that correct? Okay, so I just wanted to get us back to presencing, if that's okay, and that's my ask for today, and I'm complete. Thank you.
As far as I'm aware, as to which direction the conversation was going to be taken today, Josh, is the one you've taken. And the question is still the question that Stacey put forward. Do we want a bot that is capable of invigilating on behalf of us on our conversations? Should our voices and our phrases and our words trigger the bot? It steps in and says, no, 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 you're being naughty. And I'm saying, I don't want that bot. My answer is based on empirical evidence of bots which are doing similar jobs already. And I mentioned that the anti-terrorist bot and the governments with the anti-terrorist programs, where the information is given to them, and it can be maliciously, offensively bad information, get people into trouble for no other reason than me being raised in a culture where brown people are looked down upon. Hence my reservation of I want to be able to clarify the information. So, did I ask to be in this culture? I don't remember asking anybody to tell them that I wanted to be in the UK or which country I was going to be born in. And is my interpretation of the laws and regulations of this country the same as the ones who made those laws? I don't think so. So what freedom have I got? It's much less than the privileged white man and the lower classes of the white people that I live with, and they are this area, the whole 2-kilometer radius of this area or thereabouts. They're all very poor. This is a working class area. And they're genuinely working class people, and very few of them ever want to be deeply involved in the politics. They can't be, because they have no interest, because they've not been given that freedom or that knowledge to do that. And if you ask them, are you happy? Yeah, I'm happy. But they wouldn't know what happiness is. I am deliberating on this for the very reason that we are being fooled into believing the very things that we think are genuine, these abstracts of I'm freedom, I have some choice. and I can be whatever I want to be. Well, I don't particularly want to be a monkey. So, okay, I'm not a monkey.
I think Sam's got some.
We are put into spaces and cages, and by the very people who then tell us, don't judge. Not long ago, we were given a list of subjects that he said, don't talk about money, don't talk about sex, don't talk about football, don't talk about religion, don't talk about personal relationships, and you'll have a great relationship. So why can't we talk about politics? Well, you don't need to know. We will deal with it for you. In other words, leave it alone. Now we have the knowledge and the wherewithal. We have that added freedom. It wasn't given to us. It had to be fought over a number of centuries.
So that's the freedom, like what we're
Is
doing
it?
now.
Is it a freedom?
Well, what if we consciously use it?
Well,
Isn't it then a freedom?
if we had the freedom of this particular political situation, would we have Boris as prime minister? Would we have Trump as prime minister? Or is the present oligarchy and the hierarchy that other corporations have put these people into power, are they not the ones who are the ones with the destiny of us lot in their hands? Are we not doing exactly what they want us to do? And they manipulate us with the words and phraseology, changing global warming to climate change. And we have a president and a prime minister, maybe three with Modi as well, who think that the information on climate change is a hoax. Does that warm me up? You bet it warms me up.
Well, it's not it's a deficient conversation, you know, that's the whole problem. People don't understand each other. Just for the reason you mentioned earlier, they understand the words in all kinds of different ways. Yeah, Sam, yeah, I'm sure you have lots and others too.
Well, as Josh pointed out, there are many questions hanging in the air in this conference. I do have thoughts on each of them, but let me confine my thoughts to this first one, which was a question that Jaswinder asked, I believe, about did I choose to be born? So I think what this is for me is a reminder that if we don't think systematically or systemically, we sometimes get a little bit too anthropomorphic. In other words, is a zygote or a molecule of DNA free to choose where it's going to express itself? Arguably, it's not yet human. So you're not actually talking about a human identity. You're talking about a bunch of cells, a bunch of molecules, which eventually may grow into a human. So there's an evolution of a physical being, and there's probably an evolution of that identity as well. So at what point are you asking whether that freedom is ascribed? Which I think is largely, again, misleading if you don't understand the systemic view of that. So it goes back to another point where someone was saying, are we thinking critically or are we thinking appreciatively? I think the systemic view is do both. And don't do one or the other at any given time. Do both at the same time. And there's probably other methods as well. So those are only two. There's not only two ways to approach a situation. So there are many such schools of thought that would actually advise and recommend and guide you towards proper behavior or, you know, optimal behavior, whatever you want to talk about it, you know, right action, you know, if you want to use those words. So I think sometimes the words we use are traps, both for ourselves as well as for others, to say, okay, answer it this way because this is the model that it implies at the time, which then negates some other aspects of existence and behavior and systemic thinking. So I think the words we use have to be chosen very carefully. And unfortunately, they're each limited. So the effect of them all is to bring in a lot of other baggage, which now in Jaswinder's mind, if you were a judicious interpreter, you'd be aware of that. And you would actually take that into account and understand the intent behind the utterance, not just the words. Even just yesterday, I posted something on Facebook where the word education was triggering to someone else. And that actually did not convey then a notion that, hey, we're all using these brittle words. And if I take my brittle word and apply it to you, make that assumption, and then react negatively to you, that doesn't really invite conversation or exploration or mutual understanding. So I've been going on a lot of different topics already, but these are how these things are all connected for me. And this is why, in fact, I'm realizing that it's difficult to focus, and I use that word specifically, in barn raising, because all of these different aspects, when we're really trying to search for understanding, they do get brought up. They do have relevance. And that's why it's difficult then to say, okay, this connects to that, which connects to that, this connects to that. And by the time I get there, you're all thinking about how you respond to this one or this one or this one or that one. And then it's difficult for any specific one of us to follow the conversation. And then we use the word chaos.
But that's because we do monologues, Sam. That's because we're doing monologues here habitually. We're hardly going back and forward with questions. So that's one part of it.
I think each of our experiments, and again, speaking unfairly, either we can speak in monologues and therefore really represent the depth of what it is we're trying to say, or we keep it 30 seconds or a minute and then we keep it shallow. And then it sort of skims like a rock on top of the ocean and never gets deep. So I have difficulty actually with both. Over.
What if we like question and answer like key, like for example, what would the combination of critical and appreciative inquiry look like in a space like this, for example? So what if we like follow a thread together, question, responding, question, responding, just take it wherever it goes. I mean, I would love to, you know, try some of that as well. The monologues can be fine, but, you know, it could be interesting to try the questioning approach as well. What's your question, Alex?
Well, my question is, because there's programs available now that create websites and web pages for the user, and all the user has to do is to choose the background and the components they want. The question is, why haven't we all got a web page that displays our talents and questions? Because they're free. Weebly's got them for free. If you don't take the banner ad out, if you leave the banner ad in, they're free.
Well, what I would like to suggest at this stage is that people who are overly fond of long monologues, especially monologues that repeat itself, and I would point my finger definitely at Glenn on that one, and on Colin. Secondly, that if you want to really have a deep search on these, we take these monologues, mine included, and take them apart, sentence by sentence, phrase by phrase, and even down to the words if necessary. Then we can have some commonality, and then we can start deciding which words are actually being meant as we are taking it, and not as just willy-nilly. Because most of the time, these monologues, to quote a phrase, are just mumbo-jumbo. And if you want to do the appreciative method as well as the empirical method, as well as probably other methods included, then we really have to open it up. And then nobody should be upset at all because we are exploring at extremely deep level with umpteen people rather than just on a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 ratio. I'm all for that.
Exactly.
I've always
We're
been for
exploring.
all of that. And I've pointed these differences out previously. You didn't get far with that. I'm complete.
So I also think that there's a timing and an order to the different approaches we use. So Jaswinder asked, did we ask to be born? And Josh wanted to go back to that, which makes sense because if we ask to be born, if we believe that we asked to be born, we're going to head down a certain track as we continue on to answer different questions and to think. If we don't believe we asked to be born, we're going to go down a different path. So I think first we ask, do we believe this or don't we believe this? Then we take one baby step forward. Then we can decide, do we want to continue down the path to the left or the path to the right? And then we decide if we want to go that way. One little step at a time. And I'm looking at your reactions and you all understand what I say, so I can stop.
Yeah, that makes, yeah, definitely perfect sense. I also had a little question
Colin has
about,
something.
yeah, go first, Colin.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Stacy. Sorry, I had to step away for a second. I got a family call. I don't think I missed much. Yeah, the questioning is very interesting to me, and I really like where Stacy went with that, because that's what I call the little game of discernment that I've came up with, where you discern one way or the other. And it's on your way to learning how to agree better or disagree better or more convivially. You know, actually have concern and understand what the other person's saying before your biasms take over, or you get an opportunity to explain your own bias. And hopefully other people understand your bias and your worldview and where you're coming from. Because two people with a different worldview, like, do you agree yes or no to this? There's a whole, you know, that's the iceberg peeking out of understanding. Now, this takes me back to a theme of the whole barn raising, which is coexistence. I think is a major theme we have as far as co-visioning and coexistence. And that takes me back to what Jazz was saying about how everything's a conspiracy built up to control us, and, you know, can we trust anybody, and blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm sure there's a whole lot of governance going on that we don't agree with. But I see it as having more problems than solutions, more problems than resources to solve them. So the government has to choose, you know, how am I going to attack this? We have, you know, medical problems, education problems, behavior problems. We got all kinds of problems. How are we going to help society? And hundreds and hundreds of years ago, they come up with a thing called religion to try to do it. You know, and now we're seeing the tail endings of religion with the ability to speak to each other as we are today. We've shortcut the middleman of divine knowledge. So when you talk about scriptures being written in an old language, and now when you translate them to a living language, they mean something different. Well, I think the whole progression means that we grow to a greater understanding, which will probably be different to what it was a few thousand years ago. At the same time, there's some things that do remain the same. We're still, you know, Homo sapiens, right? So we still got a very big commonality there to start with. It's not like if you rose a dog and a child together that the dog, you know, if you trade places and put the child in the doghouse and the dog in the crib, the dog's going to learn how to talk and do math. But, you know, that's not going to happen. So there is a limitation to, you know, what can be done. So when it comes down to it, you take all of these problems, which we're mentioning, you know, how do we discuss these problems? How do we stay on focus with the problem? Well, it takes me back to software. where you have agile methods to choose off a piece. And if everybody in that endeavor, you could say group for us, but everybody in that endeavor feel like we're dealing with the most important things, and we will get to the other things because they have been documented, or you're quite certain that they will get documented as they come up, so things don't get lost, which is called the backlog. Then, you know, we could start to chew on some of these things, and we could have certain focus days, knowing that we don't have to keep trying to beat our own drum because we don't feel heard. So I think that until things gel in a way that we feel like we're communicating well, we just keep going around in circles. And I think when you come down to it, there is no ultimate one silver bullet solution for things. What you have is this coexistence issue. How do you set up boundaries and respect other people? And even though you might not agree with something, as long as it's not harming you, how can you help support them so they can support you in the things that you have individually and unique? Because everything is not the same. There is no, and as far as the AI bots, I think that they should be able to assist us to navigate, not make the decisions for us, at least at this point in time. So, you know.
Yeah, we'll have to make the decision.
And that's coming, like, you know, with the voice and stuff, you know, they're going to leapfrog over Stacy, what she says, if I could just script it out. And I assume she means writing with a pen, not with a computer script. But she's writing with a pen.
Bursting over here with lots of things here.
Yeah, so that's going to be done with voice. So, you know, how do we deal with the coexistence issue in this group and focus on bite-sized pieces while not feeling like everything's being lost? So, you know, we keep saying the same thing over and over again. I thought we were getting there a few weeks ago with some of the methods that Sam was bringing up, but it is a major endeavor, especially when we're not being paid and we only have a few hours a week to really put into this. But it is good, and I do enjoy contemplating these things.
The Colin, yeah, you did, and it's important to not go too long. Yeah, Sam and many others have their hands up here. Go ahead. I think Sam first, right?
So my conclusion, especially with what Colin just shared, is that this idea of focus requires intervention and moderation and guidance. Because each of us, when we hear a question, we're going to take little bits and pieces of it, and our mind's going to go differently. You know, I might be interested in one aspect of it, somebody else might actually be riffing on another aspect of it. And that's why these conversations, if allowed to flow, basically, you know, appear like Brownian motion or, you know, unfocused. But focus to me says, okay, one person has got to be able to choose that path of what is most.
Sam froze with a really cool image there.
We need that guidance because only one person can actually choose what that focus really means. On the other hand, the others can say, well, that person's either doing a good job staying on topic or a bad job staying on topic. And we can then choose whether or not that moderation should continue, or you just vote with your feet and go elsewhere. But if we don't want focus, you know, we appear to have these conversations that don't seem to go anywhere, and yet they still explore valuable territory. So I think that's the difficulty between focus and riffing, which I guess is a way to call the other kind of conversations. And so just to wrap up here in 30 seconds, the suggestion that barn raising focus, I think, was an incomplete suggestion without a proposal that says, okay, I or someone else choose to moderate, perhaps even on a session by session basis or the entire time slot. So that's the conclusion I've come to in my mind. And I'm putting it out here just to see if that sounds reasonable. But I just wanted to sort of say that if so, then that implies other guidance as well. Over.
Well, I would like to suggest that whatever we talk about, we do take the empirical evidence into consideration. Whatever the question is, whatever the response is, we look for the available evidence and not just fob it off and say, well, there's no evidence for that. Because I'm of the opinion today that there is evidence for almost everything, for and against. It's time to evaluate and not just make statements and say, well, that's a difficult situation. Let's have a moderation on that because we want to coexist peaceably. Here we are with the greatest gift of all, that we can actually talk about these things. And we are saying, well, it may be a bit too much, might cause chaos. So let's put borders on it. Bang goes your whatever little bit of freedom you've gained so far. It's I'm completely, it's mind-bogglingly good to me that we want to mute our own selves.
What are you thinking, Josh?
Saw Alex raise his hand, so I'm going to concede over to Alex and say, please
Alex.
go ahead.
I was thinking about what some of us have achieved during our time away from the Zoom sessions in our own businesses and homes with our own projects and things like that. And I've noticed that it's productive to come to these sessions and listen and contribute and think about the questions you would have given when somebody asked the question, think about the answers. And, I mean, it's working in other areas. People are developing stuff constructively, doing stuff. So that's where focus is being directed. What's the key to getting something working? What's the key to getting focused on something that's going to improve global effort to create change in the world? That's basically open networking with AI involvement. Over.
So is the difficulty of focus because of the global nature of what we're talking about? Is it simply the magnitude of it that inevitably it's difficult to focus? Josh.
What's coming up for me is the idea of asking people first, do you want to be on a team? And then, of course, asking, what does that look like if you say yes? So if I say, yes, I want to be on a team, what is my role? How can I help the team? Because just by saying yes to, I want to be on a team, or I want to be in a community of impact, or I want to be a part of something, then you have to ask the next question is, what does that look like if I say yes? So what does that mean for me? If I say I want to be on a team, do I get a chance to be the team leader? Am I playing a role on the team? What does that mean if I say yes? So I don't think barn raising has ever asked if we want to be a team first to raise a barn. And I think that's an important ask is, do we want to be on a team? And if so, do we feel like we're on a team? And what can we do and how can we do us better so that we can gel better as a team and work together? Because if we haven't even asked those questions, then how would we know if we want to take on a role and let go of something that we want the team to do? Meaning then we have to pick what thing that we're going to do. So what game are we going to play?
Well, haven't we already decided that? We're playing co-visioning, right?
So let me ask a project before I get interrupted when I'm talking. So I'm asking a question, do we want to be on a team? And I'd like to go around the room and ask that so that I know if I'm working as a team here, or if I'm just monologuing and talking to random people, or if I'm working together as a team. And then if so, what role am I supposed to be playing here? Am I supposed to play a role where I hold up a hand and ask something and see if I'm heard? Am I playing a game, am I heard, am I not heard? Or am I playing a game called who has the ability to do what, and how can I enhance their ability and presence and regenerate and work together? Are we working together? Do we want to be on a team that works together? And if so, am I able to be quiet and listen to what the facilitator, the scribe, the knowledge trail person, the whoever has what role to play on the team, I respect that role. And when they speak, I listen to that role. But I want to ask, do we want to be on a team? And I thought that Joss Winder's question and the way Stacy phrased it was so beautiful, is did we ask to be on Team Earth? Did you sign up for the game called life on Team Earth? I think that's a very relevant question, and it's really important to ask. And I've heard Sam say, you know, let's make agreements. Well, maybe it starts with the agreement of, I want to work with these specific people, or I want to be on the other team, and let's split off into separate teams so that we enjoy working with each other. So I'll leave off with this, and I appreciate you guys listening to me, is the question, do you want to be on a team? Let's just ask that question and start from there. And if we don't know how to answer yes or no, because we don't know what that answer is, let's dialogue and really progress there, because I think it's really important to ask that question.
Okay, I'll go first. I want to be on team with you guys to create co-visioning, a co-vision, a larger vision. And I already feel that I'm on that team, and I already understood that the barn racing calls have been kind of going with that as a project for a while, right? So that, and I'm also on Team Humans and Team Earth already. So I'm already on that team no matter what. But like specifically, I'm on, I would love to help anyone with co-visioning and sense making and exploring conversations. So yeah, I think that's my answer. That is a team I want to be on. Whoever's on it, I'm on that too. Yes, Winder and Alex.
I'm on the team.
I saw the word team written out as together, everyone achieves more.
Well, I'm also on Team Human, and for me, what I have to contribute is me. So I'll just move to different places along that human playing ground, and where I'm needed, I'll plug in. But I'm not necessarily going to change what I have to offer based on the team. Instead, if there's not a spot there that needs what I have to give, I'll just move on to a different spot.
But it also came to me behind Josh's question. It is, I just want to try to understand it. Is it that you come back to this with a sort of identity around a team or a unit that's larger than ourselves? And then I wonder, okay, so then for what purpose? So that's sort of the question that comes to me then. Well, would love to hear what you think about, like, okay, it's a team, so what's the purpose? Because if each of us have a global purpose, yeah, then it's Team Human, right?
But each of us were created specifically with something a little bit different for a reason. So I have to imagine that each one of those pieces are important. So the only thing that I can do is work with the pieces that I have within me to make sure they're operating at full function so that I can plug in.
Yes, exactly. Your way of being and your unique, gifts. You just sort of bring that out. Isn't that kind of what we all have to do then? Just sort of bring our finest gifts, and then whatever happens, happens.
But then we have to accept that somebody that isn't behaving the way we think they should may be behaving exactly the way they're supposed to.
So what if we let everyone behave just the way they want to behave, and we never judge them, and we just try to behave well ourselves?
It's a slippery slope. You see, ask people what the purpose is. You get a lot of different responses. We're all unique. When you ask heavy questions about how they want to change the world, you'll find 97% will agree on one specific thing they want to do. They want a better world to live in. They want to cooperate with people who are like-minded and who resonate with that goal, that objective. So when so many people have the same objective, it's a lot easier for a team to focus on the next step moving forward. Over.
Yes, there has to maybe be many teams. Yeah. Sam, I think it's you.
I like the idea of everybody doing whatever they feel is their calling. The only point to which I would actually say there is a limit to that is where any of us has the potential or even the intent to do something that would damage others. And that's the only place I think that we really need, quote unquote, some governance. Other than that, the coexistence is the beautiful vision I think that we're all looking for. So the question is, what amount of guidance or structure, if you want to use that word, is appropriate in order to protect each of us from this sociopathic behavior? That can be extreme. In other words, police state can say, okay, we're here to install peace for each of you. Or it can be minimal and say, well, geez, don't do it. Let's leave it up to everybody's judgment that they're not going to harm anyone else. Each of those has negative ramifications. And if we're going to be absolute about causing zero damage, then we get more and more horrendous with our governance. If we're able to tolerate some, and I use that word tolerate very, in a very pokey fashion. If we're able to tolerate some cases of damage between people, then we can get by with a lot less structure. And that's a very tough trade-off. If you really want no person to be damaged in any way, the restrictions you put on behavior and what's allowed are hellish. And yet we see a lot of political correctness going in that direction.
Would that be for physical damage as well?
Sorry, I couldn't understand the question.
But like for basic physical, that everyone should be physically safe, for example, that wouldn't limit us, would it?
I think it depends on what standards you're willing to impose on society. In a small town or small community of 15,000 people, people pretty much take their own agency and say, I'm going to be responsible here. I'm not going to cause damage to others. And, really, we only have like 2 or 3 sheriffs on this entire island of about 15,000 people. But on the other hand, how come 45% or more of my taxes, out of my paycheck, go towards this government thing? And there's all of that apparatus that's imposing restrictions on me for the most extreme cases. Like, I'm not even supposed to walk across the street. I'm violating their laws, even though there's no traffic at 2 o'clock in the morning, for example. So we can get draconian, or we can tolerate, what is everyone's best judgment that may yet still not be perfect. Over.
So it would seem to me, as said previously, we want to continue decisions we make and what we do and say has a measure of responsibility. Freedom does not come without responsibility. most of us know those responsibilities and how to react. And yes, there are lots of restrictions imposed on us by others who want to make doubly sure that we do. It's up to us to say to them, well, we've grown up a lot since those laws were put into position, and we want to change. And for that, we need teamwork. This morning, I opened up my email and I got an email from one of the local bodies to say that one of the laws that needed changing at the highest level, which is the government level, will be changed, which is great. So a little bit of people power did that. It was worth spending a few minutes of reading the proposal and agreeing to sign and say, yes, I would like this to be changed. Added to that, I would say that for us to move forward individually and collectively, we have to have this open mind and to be accept evidence as presented that yes, it's accurate, it's true, and verify it. If we don't, if we're not prepared to change ourselves, re-educate ourselves. Somebody mentioned getting rid of baggage. It was Alex, he put it in the thing. If we don't get rid of our own excess bad baggage and be more precise, we're not going to have cohesion. Words are weighted. Each word is weighted for a meaning, and the word preceding and the word post the word that we're trying to phrase give us the amount of weight that we mean by a phrase or a phraseology or whatever we're trying to describe or show our meaning. It's not that difficult. And to say that it can't be done when we've spent well over, I don't know how many centuries, probably more, at least 2 millennia now, naming, qualifying, quantifying every, including the abstract creations and existing items as accurately as possible. And there's thousands of them being found and named, and even today, and evaluated. I don't see why we shouldn't take advantage of all this knowledge and bring it into wisdom. I, for one, am just not prepared to accept off-the-shelf stock answers as the genuine item. If you say something, you have to back it up. Empirical evidence or whatever other evidence you have would be great and complete.
So I think one of the steps that's missing is when you have evidence on one side and evidence on the other side, there's no step first where both sets of evidence is looked at together and the parts that are in agreement are separated out. And the parts that aren't are put on the shelf just for a minute so that you can reach consensus on the parts that are in agreement. Because that's what I see as the biggest challenge, that neither side gets all of the information. So if there were a middle road where you could take what's agreed on both sides and solidify that first, and then go one step at a time. Colin?
Yeah, I like that. Again, back to discernment or the game of whys, you know, ask a question, yes or no, maybe, do you agree, don't agree? And it comes down to what people think is better. I hear a lot of people talking about better, but nobody's defined it, nor can you really. I've heard some people get to the bottom of it and saying what follows humanistic values, where you don't cause harm to somebody else. In fact, I think I just heard Sam say it again today. And what constitutes harm? You know, somebody just being a little too sensitive, or, you know, so it comes down to a lot of opinion. Facts are in the science realm, and science doesn't really care what we think. So, for the most part. So do we even want to know the truth? Do two sides, you know, I sat down and asked Doug and Sam, let's do within this group, GCC, something simple. Let's just talk about what the word agreement means. There's the question. Couldn't be done. Couldn't be done. The two sides could care less. Well, actually, Sam wanted to follow through. I think Sam could see the method in the madness. And it's beginning exactly what Stacy's saying. Turn the page to another example. That was a simple one, figuring out what the word agreement means. Let's figure out what the word better means. And I think a really good example from history of the last couple of millenniums have been who has stepped up to the plate to take the role of trying to lead us to better. And I think if you ask, it would be what you call it, the divine, people who feel that they have a tap into the divine, and they have, you know, even with or without their magic supernatural powers, they have the concern for humanity. And, you know, I think the churches were some of the first places to give our social services to people who were poor, to give them a place to sleep and something to eat. So yeah, just defining what is better, and what team am I on? What, you know, am I on this team? What is the team, and what do I bring to the team? That's a good question, Josh. I think I'm here in a capacity of a tool maker, or somebody who helps give you a hammer when you want to actually hammer in the nail into the barn. If you say, well, can you take that hammer and help us build the barn? Sure, I'll do that too. But I'm looking to actually see what kind of hammer you need. So I'm kind of what you would call at a level above. I'm trying to identify the problem and say, you know, what tools do we need to act with this problem? And the problem I'm identifying within this group is focus. And I thought one tool we could use would be, besides our attention and our time, which are the most important tools to bring to bear, would be a way to manage those tools. And that would have been Trello. And so I think what Josh was asking, you know, what is the matrix or the metric to which you can measure empirically what you bring and what is expected of you. And I think it comes down to results. What results are you looking to bring? What are you know, what is the outcome? And bite-sized pieces. This idea of trying to save or change or help the whole world, I think is a bit delusional. I think we could have a discussion about what we think is better in some kind of a context, and then we could kind of wrap our minds around that. This spiritual talk really, it does help bolster the group and the, you know, the atmosphere of commonality, and we're in this together, and, you know, I agree with all of that. But when it comes down to saying what we're going to do, I think it's a lot of navel gazing, as Sam said last time. If we don't actually say, well, this is what I plan on bringing to the table, this is what I want to see achieved. And I've tried a few things, and other people have tried things, and I think without a way to really grab attention and have us all say, you know what, we're going to support, for example, Stacy and her game of questing. And, you know, if I've got some tools that can help document that game of discernment or whatever it is, or somebody else, maybe Sam has some tools or Josh has some tools that could help her with that. The point is that she's got a direction she wants to go, and she has to play that game and see where it goes. She has to experiment with it and not just feel like it's going to evaporate into nothing within a couple of weeks. And that's what I see happen here. We all have really good intentions, but we can't follow through on anything because we don't have the right tools. So I'm sitting back looking at what's going on, saying, these guys wouldn't know a tool if I handed it to them. And so, you know, and I know Josh knows what I'm talking about, and Sam knows what I'm talking about for sure. Because
Daisy
you know,
had something. I
yeah,
think
go
she
ahead.
wanted to respond to what you just.
Yeah.
Tell
Actually, there's a lot of things I'd like to respond to, but I'll just pick one, which is one of the challenges that I see a lot are people wanting to help, but they want to help the way that they want to give you what they want to give, not necessarily to give you what you're asking for or what you need. And the assumption that I know better what you need is a really bad one. So that's one thing I wanted to say. I'll save the others for when they come up. Josh?
Yeah, I was just going to say what you're talking about, Stacy, to me is communication. So if you're asking for something and then they're saying, oh, here it is, and you're going, no, 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 that's not what I'm asking for, then it's how the communication between the ask and the receive is done better. How can we do our communication better? That's something that I would like to bring up, because that's what I'm hearing over and over again is different people are communicating different things, but are we actually being heard and are we receiving what we're asking? And with that,
So
I'll
what I
complete.
want to say to that is I've found that there are some people that regardless of how you communicate are still going to respond the same way because that's the way they're wired and they're not looking to change that. So for me, I've learned to find the people that are wired in a slightly different way so that when I get my communication right, I also get my needs met. Whereas there are going to be some people, we're going to be talking to them, they're never going to get it, but we keep hammering away, keep hammering away. Like Colin, you brought up the thing, you wanted to have the agreement, the discussion with Sam and Doug. My question to you would be, at what point do you stop asking Doug and find somebody else?
That's a really good question. And I actually brought that up, I think 2 weeks ago, talking about the exact same thing. When do I say, okay, well, Doug, he's the ideal candidate. When do I find the next one? Because Doug doesn't want to participate.
Right. So
You're
it's not
exactly right.
necessarily about communication all the time.
Right. And it's when do I want to go outside of this group, or is it experiment I want to do with this group? So I think me making my point of what I was trying to get at and be understood. See, the umbrella word for
Just
me is
schedule a
understanding.
conversation. I mean, you just
Yeah.
schedule a conversation. I mean, Doug would be
Well, did Doug
interested in
understand?
that.
Did Doug understand what I was asking? I don't think so.
I don't know,
But it
His
doesn't
response-
even, what I'm saying is I'm not sure it even matters. What I'm
Oh.
saying is sometimes we just need to move around something. For example, I'll go to a different, somebody who's very based in science is talking to somebody who may also be very based in science, but they also have strong spiritual beliefs. Those go together as far as I'm concerned, depending on who you are, how you're looking at it. You may not have to know why something works to recognize that it works and to go to the next step. Some people, and I'm not even going to talk just about, it's not even just about religion. It could be about anything. It could be about the environment or
Reality, just reality, maybe.
I think what I'm trying to say is you can have a different belief about why something works and still be able to use that thing that works together. It's not always necessary to prove why it is. Sometimes it's necessary. If you're building something, sometimes it's necessary. But if it's a philosophical kind of thing, it's not always necessary to believe exactly as long as you're moving in the same direction. But certain people have that need. It's the whole thing. Do you want peace or do you want to be right? Sometimes maybe you want to be right. Sometimes you just want peace. That changes. Or it should change. I mean, it should change. You have to know when and why you're picking your battles.
I definitely want to respond to that. I think it would do well to go down into it and discover why it isn't working, so that all the people involved who actually are attempting to work together can learn how to work together better. You can only do that by understanding the other people. So the whole, and I won't take a long time, but the whole thing was I saw two group leaders in the GCC at ends, and I saw there a problem that we couldn't even understand how to agree, which I think is fundamental to everything. So if you don't agree to find understanding, then we don't want understanding. So that was my agreement, was to find a way to understand. I wanted to understand what Doug is talking about. Sam wanted to understand what Doug was talking about. So I said, why don't we let me moderate those two trying to figure out what they're talking about? Because I think we're talking past each other. And without willing to go into that experiment, I think kind of everything else is just a red herring, because this is the main thing we're doing here. So I wanted to set up a forum where we could not to say who's right or who's happy or who feels accepted or science, or, you know, definitely come with a holistic view of what do you mean by the word agreement? What does it mean to agree? That was all we were going to talk about. And then we could bring out this suggestion Stacy had. Okay, so left and right of this, what's the left and what's the right of this? Or Doug's opinion and Sam's opinion. Where do they have commonalities? Where does it diverge? Where can we take this conversation so all of the people who are putting their time into this group, listening to these people, can actually understand what they're talking about? That's
Okay.
what I would love.
Okay, so I hear what your needs were. So what I would say to you is you also could have just interviewed Doug directly. I'm sure he would have answered your questions. And then you could have interviewed Sam directly.
No, it wasn't.
All I'm saying,
It wasn't for
Colin,
me. It wasn't for me. I think Sam was doing a really good job at asking the right questions, and he wasn't getting the answers, and it was being put off. So I said, you know, we really need to dedicate some time to get to the bottom of this one topic. I thought it was quite foundational.
Colin,
so I was willing to put my time into it.
So here's
That's all.
what I'm trying
and I can't find somebody better than Doug, because Doug is a leader. Sam is a leader. And I
Schedule
wanted
the
to have the
bloody
two leaders
conversation
discuss.
already. Just schedule a conversation for them.
I just want to say one thing. I just want to clarify
It may
something.
go through.
I want to just say one statement. What I want to say is that when we find a need, or when we have a need, and the first way we choose to go about it doesn't fill our need, maybe it's time to look at another way to meet that same need. That's
Totally
all I'm
agree.
saying.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And I thought I was taking the most generic, simple way to go, but I could be wrong in that. And you make a good point about that. There's other opinions of how to fill that need. I see a need for understanding. I'm willing to choose whatever tools it would take. But if people aren't willing to try tools and they just say, oh, which was the excuse, I'm not going to help you experiment and build your game. And it wasn't so much about my game. It's just, I think it's quite a natural way of inquiry. And I think you feel the same thing, Stacy, as well. You have a certain way to go about with, you know, speaking truth with Stacy, and just what you bring, I think is very, very similar in trying to uncover this common ground or understanding. So I think definitely it could be proposed better. Maybe I didn't take the right time to tee up the ball. I don't know. I thought I did. It took 2 weeks.
TF the ball? Well, what does that mean?
Yeah. Tee up the ball. That means put it where they can hit it easily, not make it difficult.
Yes. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have one. Yeah, go ahead, Stacey, first.
No, I was just going to say, as I was listening to Colin speak, another thing that's important is sometimes people don't know why you're asking them to do something, and they assume you're asking them to do it for one reason or another, and that's going to impact how they're going to respond. You know,
Of course, expectations always impact.
yeah, I mean, it happens with salespeople all the time. A salesperson will come at you and all of a sudden your walls go up because they're trying to sell me something. So you're going to react that way when that may or may not be the case. I mean, in their case, it probably is. But in terms of us, if we go to somebody else, that person, oh, Colin wanted to work on his maps, or Stacy wanted to do this. But that may not be, there may be more to it. So sometimes just finding out, why do you want me to do, at least for me, it's important for me to know why somebody wants me to do something. Because maybe I'll do it because I want to do it to help them. Or maybe if, to me, that's not something that feels right for me, I'm not going to push myself.
Well, I was hoping that it was something that they wanted and I was facilitating, which, you know, was I feeding them a sandwich? I don't know. I think from Sam's point of view, I was aligned. I think from Doug's point of view, I was trying to align, but you're right. He might have had questions of whether that was the best way to go about it. It just didn't go any further. I felt resistance, so I backed away. But I would really like to follow through on this topic of agreement and how to understand what it is we're trying to agree upon, because it's the question before what Josh asked. You know, what is this team and what are the outcomes of particular endeavors? If we can't learn what, you know, these simple things where Doug talks for 20 minutes and nobody knows what he's talking about. So Sam says, well, what exactly do you mean? Can we agree upon some terms? And, you know, it just kind of falls off the rails. And I just, you know, I'd like to hold some people to account of being clear so that we can understand them, not so that I can say they're right or wrong, but so that we can have what you call a straw manning experience where Doug gets strawed man with what he thinks the better is or what he's trying to achieve, and Sam within that one little realm. I'd love to hear Sam's opinion on this because, you know, I don't want to be beating the drum when I thought, you know, I was part of a team. Then all of a sudden, you know, Stacy says, well, maybe you think you're part of the team, but, you know, nobody wants to play that game. And I'm saying, well, let's first decide if that's the game we should play. And I thought I was getting positive response, but I was surprised that when it comes down to it, you tee up the ball and nobody wants to swing.
I disagree. The simple rules for agreement, the simple rules for using text and context and conversation. If you want to achieve something with a team effort, then it's generally accepted that you use the standard definition dictionary for meaning, the meanings of words. Look it up if you don't know the meaning of a word, like agreement, and then you're clear and we can move forward. Because moving
that's
forward,
easier said than done.
The groups agreed on a what do you call it, on a vote. You have a vote, it's unanimous. Everybody wants a better world to live in. Over.
Well, I'll just leave it for Sam to pick up that ball or not. But it was foundational to me. I felt it was an alignment. I thought it was within the tools that I can help facilitate. And if I'm that wrong, I'd like to know why. And that Sam and Doug couldn't have that discussion because it's not just a simple term of what agreement makes. It's within the context of the GCC and the history we have, what it means to agree. So everything takes on a context. You know, I think it's as simple as what Sam was saying. You're made up of atoms, but your atoms are alive. But the atoms over there on the ground, they're not alive. Well, when are those atoms going to get inside of you and be considered alive? Like you eat a cucumber or something. Like, I don't know. But it's...
yeah, I think Jaswinder, you have something there.
There's been an awful lot of time spent going around in circles by one person again. And I have a simple, clear question. He's asking for clarity, so am I. What does he want the GCC doing? Go ahead, answer that question, Colin.
Well, I thought the GCC was
No, not any of that. Have a think about it. You've been here for many, many months, and every now and again, somebody puts a strategy forward, and you disagree with the strategy, because you can't see where the GCC is headed. Regardless of that, whether you can see that or not, you don't even agree with the strategy, but you do not put forward any other strategy of moving forward, whether individually or collectively. Today, all we're trying to decide was something along different lines to what you've been saying. And it became clear to me, crystal clear, it's you who don't understand. And you are figuring
Come on, can't we just do this a little
Wait a
simpler?
minute, it's an accusation. I'm
Needs
entitled
to
to make
say
an
what
accusation.
does he want? What
Exactly.
does Colin
If he's
want?
going to accuse others of not understanding, I want to know, does he understand and does he have a strategy?
So why not just say, Colin, what do you think would be a better strategy?
I did.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
First you went on to give your opinion of what you
Yes,
saw
he
happen,
said,
which
and
may or
I'll
may not.
debate that with you. I'm
But
not
I'm
going to take long, and he's hogged over 50% of the time, but he's not coming up with any
That's
solution.
not true.
But
So what
rather,
would be
everybody
your-
else, oh, Sam and Doug should discuss that, and we should discuss that. And he keeps swapping from the D, from the we to the I. It's
Okay,
time
then
he
he
took
has
respons-
answered it then.
time
He's
to take
answered it then.
responsibility
He
for
said
what he's saying.
he wants
I
that
don't
meeting.
Jaswinder,
Said that
what
actually.
all I'm saying is the best chance that you had of getting Colin to say what his strategy was is to say, Colin, what would your strategy be? So if you really want the answer, the best way would have been to just say it like that.
Colin,
And
what would
Colin-
your strategy be?
Well, I take offense to say that I'm taking up 50% of the time. I do give my opinion, and I do respect when the moderator wants me to cede the floor.
And you put that on hold for now and just tell us what your strategy would be?
Yeah, please,
So-
just tell us what would be if you could have it any way you wanted. How would
Yeah.
it be?
Well, it
Simple.
depends. First of all, I think there's probably a slew of different problems which each need their own strategy. But overall, my strategy is a software development type of mindset because that's what I know. If it doesn't fit, then people can say, hey, that doesn't fit here. And then I concede, we're talking about religion. Software development is going to help with religion. I'll just listen. I'll learn something. But when it comes to focusing on a huge problems, that's what software development kind of does. So yes, I like Trello. We'll just say that. If you're going to actually do something, write it down and say when you plan on being done, 2 weeks, a month, whatever, and that's your thing. No big deal. I hear Doug and Sam saying what their thing is over and over. So what my strategy is there is to say, well, what is it clearly? Because I do not understand, as you had pointed out, I don't understand. So I'm not going to say I do understand and therefore you should do this. I'm saying let's sit down and let's understand, because Sam doesn't understand. And Sam I heard Sam saying, well, let's discuss that. I see my tools as saying, well, let's map the discussion so that we don't get lost. And so that when somebody
Map what discussion again? So then we're back to what to focus
whatever
on. What do
the
we want to
topic
talk
is.
on?
Whatever the
So
topic is, it
today,
could be.
what do you
anything.
want to explore, for example? Like
Well, with you, Glenn, it was the idea of possibilities and infinity. With I can't remember what Jazz and I were talking about. With Stacy, it was what I think we have a subtopic on whether lying's good. But with Sam and Doug, the topic is agreements, because Sam thinks agreements are foundational, from what I understand. I won't put words in his mouth. And Doug thinks that we don't need to agree. And I think that's
simply
huge.
about
That's a huge
scheduling.
bottleneck.
So it's
That's a
simply
huge
about
bottleneck in the
scheduling
leadership.
the conversations. That's sort of what you need
Understanding,
then.
tools for understanding. That's what I want, Jazz. And ways to track it. So that's the simple answer. I proposed a few ideas. They fell flat. Stacy says we'll try a different way. If it's important. If everybody agrees it's important, then we should go forward with this fish on the hook. If it's not, let the fish go. So, I don't think I'm trying to disrupt anything or disagree anybody's strategy is bad. I'm just saying, I've got an idea. Why don't we dive into that one topic? And again, I cede to Sam. I'd like to hear what Sam thinks about that. Or we could switch to something else.
The strategy I put forward very early on in this particular session is the exact strategy you're mentioning now. is that where we have discord, disagreements, that we actually talk about them, bring them out into the open and discuss them at a very high level. In other words, explore them right down to the single word where the discord may be. And in this particular session, you mentioned the word agreement, which seems to me very important, that you want that clarified, not for yourself, but for the group. Okay? Because you don't want the group foundering at some later date. And there are other items you bring up that you want clarifying because you don't want the group to founder at a later date. But the group is not being consulted, whether they want them clarifying or not. You're putting forward that strategy. And you're insisting that they be done. The use of Trello, you want Trello to be used and for people to go on there and put whatever they want to do on Trello and put a time and date on it and then do it.
That wasn't my suggestion, Jazz. That wasn't my suggestion. That was Sam brought Trello to the game. That wasn't my suggestion about agreement.
Today
Sam
I heard you say that you
hold on, Jazz. Hold on before you get us farther off the tracks.
Yeah.
I am trying to follow what people are saying, and I am trying to look for understanding.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that it was doing it for myself or imposing on anybody. All right.
But look. I mean, I really think we got totally off track here.
This is, this may
No,
be
it's not that interesting, Jaswinder, really.
No, it's not. And I just see Sam and Doug as two of our leaders and people who do take up.
We don't need to schedule the conversation, guys. We just need to find the date.
Colin,
leaders of
I
GCC.
think I would like to clarify. This is an egalitarian group. I'm not sure whether you know what that means or not, or you've heard it or not. But if you don't understand that, then you will keep saying the leaders. Do you understand what egalitarian means?
I'm talking about people that are actually making trails and leading the way, not telling us what to do. So I'm not talking about the traditional authoritarian leader. I'm talking about I'm saying if Doug is going to lead a show, which he does, he opens the show, he talks and he pontificates, and Sam comes up and has another show. And
what does egalitarian mean?
I'm saying it's a
I'm
disjoint operation.
I'm doing what I suggested at the start of this conversation, is that to you, the word agreement is important. The clauses that this group is set by, they're important to me. And for you, they should be important too. So if I ask you a direct question, I would really, really appreciate a direct answer. Do you know what the word egalitarian means?
Yeah, equal say.
Right.
The thing,
so the leaders,
hold on.
come into it, because you are able to come on here and have equal weight.
Right now, Glenn is leading the show today.
No, right, today has been unmoderated. We agreed to have it unmoderated. We had an agreement about that. But what we had an agreement before that was to do co-visioning. So I'm going to ask everyone, is there anyone here who's not interested in co-visioning? Because I thought that had already been agreed on.
Exactly.
So that we would do co-visioning. So everything we've talked about today then falls under the umbrella of co-visioning, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it means. Is that right? Or is there anyone here who's not interested in doing co-visioning? Because I thought that was where it all came together.
I was surprised that Doug and Sam had difficulty co-visioning around the word agreement. That's what it was. That's
okay,
what it
we
was.
can deal with that.
So Sam's gone now. I'm going too.
But Joshua has something there.
I'll wait for Joshua.
Yeah, don't leave, Colin, because I want to say something too.
Yeah, all I was going to say is thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. And these are things that need continued discussion. And I'm glad we're discussing them here. and I was just going to say goodbye, but then Sam just dropped off. So I didn't want to leave abruptly, but we're getting somewhere, we're learning, we're dialoguing. And I also want to bring up, a lot of people don't believe that the stars in the sky or the planets in our solar system affect us, but I do notice a pattern of where the planets are and where our conversations go. So today is not necessarily a connection day, but I'm glad that we're discussing things, and it's good that we work on it even when the planets are not aligned. So blessings to
Thank
everybody,
you.
and I'm saying goodbye.
And just before you leave, Josh, thank you so much. And you talked about the portal, and I really think that that's kind of conversation is what you're so interested in as well. And I think it all fits with this, actually.
Yeah, and also the only last thing I wanted to say, thank you, Glenn. So call me anytime about distributed idea suppression complex. But just to remember, this is the last thing I'm going to say, is a dialogue is different than a trialogue, is different than a quadrilogue, and today we had a septilogue, and the conversations are always going to be different depending who's in the room and how many people are, things are arising and presencing in them at that moment in time.
And yet, Colin keeps saying we are having the same conversations. We're all repeating ourselves. So either you're wrong or he's wrong, or we're not.
Well, you
agreeing
say
on
that
these
too.
things.
You agree to
I'm
that.
happy to see you here, Josh, and I'm saying goodbye. I love you guys.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of feel it's been going all over the place here, but I mean it's interesting too, because then you get the contrast.
No. We are being much more open and direct. Stacy is a wonderful person, and I do thank her for rephrasing what I said, but I was deliberately provocative, no provocation, and we're not going to move forward. You know, the same.
I don't agree. I don't
So
agree, and I don't feel it.
same jar comes out. There it is. Those two don't agree, and they've got to agree because they're moderators. And if the moderators don't agree, what chance have we got or haven't got? And that statement was repeated all through his dialogue. So either we agree or we don't agree, or we can take it forward and say, well, we've got to sort that out sometime. It's not the be all end all that is being put, that it is. It's not. It's a very trivial thing that's being blown into more or less K2.
No, it's not trivial.
I agree. And does Stacey agree that the question was answered? Do you think you've been heard?
Do I think I've been heard? What? Yes, I do, but here's the thing. Even with, so I wasn't around for that whole thing with the agreement, so I don't know. But just based on what I
Neither
know,
was I.
okay, but based on what I know, I suspect that part of the reason for the disagreement between agreements is that Doug and Sam look at different parts of the elephant. So I would go back to the beginning and I would be saying, do we need agreements?
No.
If yes, if no, sometimes. And I think that we'd all be able to move to the first step of sometimes. Then the question changes. When do we need agreement? And then it forks again. And you can't move on to the next step if you haven't either gone to yes, no, or sometimes. Then you go to the next step. But I feel like people always try to skip that step.
And it's
I
not so
agree. And
difficult.
I was actually looking for somebody else to moderate that discussion, and I was just going to try to track it. And that's what Doug didn't like, the fact that we were going to track his words.
But you know what? Here's the interesting thing. So what I know about Doug and what I know about Sam is what they want more than anything is for people to be their own leaders. So in a group with people that want to make everyone safe to take their action without asking permission, it was actually the perfect situation for them not to agree, because that would have been the time that you could have just stepped up and asked whatever question you had. Instead of creating a whole construct to do that within, you could have just
When you say
brought in
not agree, what does that mean? Does that mean they have two different understandings of the word agreement, right? So there's
I mean that it
differences.
changes.
Yes,
I mean
and
that
it
it
changes.
changes.
And it changes. So they have their understanding. We all have our understanding of the words, okay? And that also changes. So to understand that, we have to understand our intentions. So we asked Colin a little more about what would be your dream, right? Or how would you want it to be? And we're interested in that from everybody. And so is the agreement for those who are gathered here that we're all interested in the sense making itself, in the understanding itself? That's definitely something you talked about, Colin. That's something that's central for Jess Winder. I mean, for me, for Alex, for Stacy, I think it's, and for Sam, certainly. So it's understanding, right? And that is kind of like an organic agreement which just formed with us. So Sam suggested co-visioning as a sort of umbrella, and the good thing is we can put everything we talked about today into that umbrella later if we, for example, then begin to look at what would be read out of this as your wish. Yeah, Colin, what's go for it.
Sorry, yeah, you're getting very close, and context is everything. So Jazzwinder has, I think, me set in a certain box that I don't feel that I'm in. So understanding why he puts me in that box would be interesting for me, but that's a different discussion. So I think there's biasms there, and I think Stacy brought it to bear when she said just ask the question. I would like to actually have that conversation between Doug and Sam that sparked my my desire to facilitate with what I think people adapters, what the game of discernment, what it is to actually sit and monologue for 10 minutes, Doug, and then Sam come right afterwards and say, well, I don't agree with that. And foundational things that we're here for. Now, I don't think anybody's trying to attack anybody other than, other than the few people who like to be controversial, which I don't think is actually required here. You don't have to start mocking somebody until things have actually gone off the rails and it's still important. And, I think that comes up in religion.
Don't talk in generalities, like we're all grown up there.
When religion comes into it.
That I'm picking on you, you're damn right I'm picking on you. Give me the reason that you think I'm putting you in a box. What box are you, what name are you going to put on that box?
Well, I would say you put on the box troublemaker, useless.
Oh no, that's me. I'm the troublemaker.
No, Jazz Winder is the troublemaker today.
Totally honest.
No question about that. You have been the troublemaker today,
I
Jazz
want
Winder.
the truth, the naked,
You've done an excellent job.
horrible,
you would have to know the context.
It's sweet to me. It's my pudding.
Yeah, that's fine. But you would have to know the context of where it was coming from, and that starts to elongate an explanation.
I would love to know the context. Let's get those two
The context
together.
was an unblocking show. The context was an unblocking show where Doug was making a bunch of claims and tying together connecting a bunch of dots, and then Sam says, I don't see the connections and I don't see those dots the same way you do. And whether the word was agreement that they weren't talking about. The main thing here that I noticed was that they had difficulty in actually discussing what it was. And that's where Stacy's game and my games come into play. And Doug rightfully said, I don't want to help you develop your game playing with my words. And to me, that was a cop-out. But anyway,
I had a conversation yesterday and the day before, because there were very few people at the meetings, with Doug. Yesterday we had quite a long chat, and Doug has a preset mind. He has his qualifications for his words that you so far mentioned. And he and I think over the last couple of years or so, we've only agreed less than a handful, less than 5 times. He's preset. He has a different culture. He has a different socioeconomic class. I'm closer to Sam than I am to Doug. I have not picked on him because whatever he says quite clearly, and he will say, I disagree, which is good. So I've marked a lot of items that I want to discuss with him, and I pick him on those items as we go along. I have a reasonably good memory, I'm fortunate, but I don't keep repeating all the items that I disagree with him and bring them into the general discussion. They're not that important. By and large, I agree with the overall strategy that the GCC has put forward, and it's mentioned in the introduction, it's in writing on the GCC introduction. Egalitarian, inclusive, open, safe. And for me to be safe here, I reserve the right to raise the level of the conversation as dictated by the opponent, by the protagonist. If the protagonist will not budge, then I will raise my passion to their level of passion. That is to keep avoiding, I've kept away for such a long time, is that we keep doing this very same thing. Is that
you're bagging it on.
Takes a whole program on one little item instead of lots of little items. And the 2 people that do that the most one is Glenn, who's very polite, but he does it. And the other one is you. And then hold on, Jazz. And I get frustrated.
Hold on, Jazz.
I was answering questions. The same thing. And I will do the same to show to you. That's what I'm doing now. How frustrating it gets. Because you want to say something. You really do.
What question are you answering? What question are you answering? What question?
Now, you're not being polite, are you?
Well, because I was answering Stacy, Sam, Joshua, and Glenn. Tying it together with what I see, trying to shine a light on what it is I think I could offer, and people could say, hey, we could use that. That would be good. Or,
and you then said you were interested in developing, using your software skills and in mapping conversations. And you were also interested in Infinity earlier. So you did say that.
Yeah. Well, the problem is it's what Josh said. We're having a multi-conversation, and I can't just put my chip in without having.
Why is everything such a problem?
It's not a problem.
That's one of your favorite words. The problem is this: we have this problem, we have that problem, we have that problem. The only problem we have is you want that particular word being defined, and you want somebody else to define what.
No. The word was an example of a way to understand each other, to talk to each other, and you said
the word is not important then.
No, that was important for Sam and Doug, not for me. I think it's fundamental to the group.
If it's not important to you, this is what I'm getting at. Drop it.
No, I think it's fundamental to the group. I'm part of the group.
No, it isn't. The group doesn't want it. No, it isn't. You're deciding that. Ask the group.
No. You see, again, context.
Ask the group to take a vote on it.
Hold on. If I could play a video of 30 seconds of what Sam said, and then a video of 30 seconds of what Doug said, then you would understand where I'm coming from. If you think I'm going into my storage room and pulling this stuff out, you're wrong. I'm going and assessing what I could do to help that situation, which I think is fundamental, understanding and communicating. And I will keep going back to software development because it's been worked out how to deal with complexity, a lot of complexity. How do you behave and negotiate and work together? How do you understand each other? How do you choose the topics that you're going to talk about?
I would suggest that those parameters you're talking about, you apply to yourself first. Physician,
I did.
first heal thyself.
No, I
Because
did.
You,
I said,
I'm
look,
accusing you right here and now on record that you waste a lot of the time in these group discussions because you stick to one point and now you're saying that that particular word is not important to you, but you're making it important to the group.
No. It was important
You're
to Sam.
making a decision on behalf of other people. And you
You're putting
want us
words in
to
my mouth.
listen to a transcript of that 30 seconds either way, and then you're pretty sure we would agree with you.
Well, I asked for Sam's opinion twice, and he did come on screen, and you took his time. So you tell me.
Let me make the point again, that you are saying that should I, Jaswinder, listen to that transcript, that I would agree with you. You're making a decision.
No. I asked Sam to come and comment on it, and I was dropping it off the table. You kept stirring the coals, and you didn't allow Sam any time to speak, and he left.
But you're still saying that you want to moderate a conversation between Sam and Doug on the word agreement because you think
no, I wanted somebody else to moderate. I wanted somebody else.
But
like
that's
Stacey
always the thing, right?
That's you making a statement, you making a decision on behalf of other people.
Look. If nobody wants to have the discussion, it doesn't matter who's doing what, right?
I'm sure they would both be interested in having that discussion, but
well,
the thing
it was
is,
proposed over a period of 2 weeks.
It would be simpler, Colin, if you just said, "I want to moderate it," and you just
no. I wanted to bring it together so it happened. Okay. I wanted to use discernment tools. I wanted somebody else to moderate.
Tomorrow, Sunday, is a program where we can actually discuss these things openly. I suggest you turn up.
And let's let Sam.
Put it to Doug and Sam, should they both be together, or if they're individually there, put it to them. And if you want backing, I'll back you up.
Yeah, well, you know what? I wasn't the first one. I think Joshua brought it up 2 or 3 times before that, and even
that water has gone past the bridge. Tomorrow we can
it hasn't.
We can take a bucket full and pour it down to go past the bridge again.
Well,
tomorrow there is a chance.
I would say that you're stirring the coals up, Jazz. I'd say I dropped this ball 3 times, and if you wouldn't keep making insinuations about me, I wouldn't have to keep talking about you.
Oh, we got a long way to go, Colin, because you're not changing. You want everybody else to change. You want everybody else to
I want to present ideas without having to defend myself.
Go ahead, present them. Make a list, bring them, let's hear them.
Okay, well, the idea was what Sam and Doug were talking about, why they can't get it on. That was the idea. What tools could we use? So people who want to discuss
that is not the strategy.
So the idea is to schedule a Zoom conversation with Sam and Doug? That's your idea.
Is a foreign point.
Is that the idea?
The idea is for Jaswinder to learn what we're talking about before he comments on things.
They'll come back to you.
Anyway, I gotta go.
They'll come back to
you. Sorry, I brought it up. Oh, Stacey's still looking.
I think it's a good idea, but you have to schedule the conversation. You have to just send a message to Doug or ask them tomorrow.
No, I did. I was using Sam. I was using Sam if he wanted to have the conversation. I said, yes, I'd be very willing to do that. It was on the end of a Sunday call. I think that I suggested it, and Sam said, yes, that would be a great idea. And Doug didn't say yes. Doug didn't say no. So I followed it up for about 2 weeks. And then eventually, after Doug finally says, look, I don't really want to take part in trying to help you develop.
You muted yourself.
Yeah, the sound
I don't
fell
think
off.
that was successful going forward. So I would leave it to what
But
Stacey.
forget about the past, please.
Yeah,
Can't
I
you
think what
just
Stacey's
ask
saying is
them
right.
to schedule a special
No,
Zoom
no, Glenn.
conversation?
Hold on, Glenn. Hold on.
For
I'm not
goodness
done.
sake,
I'm not done.
because doesn't matter what's happened before, right? What do you
Actually,
want now?
it does matter what's happened. And not only that, I wanted Sam to make it current. And he came on screen twice today and he got shot down. So again, we can't even have a conversation here about having a conversation about having a conversation. And I think the reason is what Josh had mentioned, that it depends who's in the room. And I think when somebody's trying to be actively a troublemaker, things go off the rails, and I'm disappointed in that. There's a time and place to protest, and I don't think we're there yet. Although Jazz just loves to do it, so he's going to do it. So anyway, I won't take offense.
Well, you know, when you go like that, you know, you're gonna trigger some responses from Colin, and of course, I know you think that's really interesting, and I'm, you know, looking, and that I guess we should learn from it, but it's also like, whoa, it goes in all directions, right? So that's. Yeah, so that's today. I kind of felt we've been kind of all over the place. I mean, but at the very least, you know, it's a little different than otherwise. What do you?
And I also feel that instead of Jazz trying to help understand what I was saying, he was trying to put me on my back heels, and I didn't like it at all.
Just Winter, what do you? Yeah, go.
At the risk of sounding like a parrot, if you're going to keep using the same accusations again and again, then I have to come to the understanding that you don't understand. And Glenn, and I do this with the best intentions. You are great at paraphrasing. I do love that about you, but once you've paraphrased it once, you repeat it again, sometimes 3 times. And it makes me wonder why. Is it that you are trying to memorize it? Or is it that you want us to memorize it? Why do you have to do it so many times?
Well,
I go so far as to say,
I kind of want to get to a
I
zero
go so
point
far as to say
to start from.
You two, in particular, change your ways to the ways of doing the business on the GCC, like the other people are doing. I'm not saying me, others like Doug and Sam, and Tammy's gone, Stacy, Josh even. I think the GCC could finally start moving forward in the year 2020. Otherwise, we might have to buy a rocket and go somewhere else. And although I giggle, this is a giggle of foolishness that I'm probably hoping for something that may not happen this year. But we should give it a damn good try.
It depends on whether we decide it's going to happen.
Honesty and opinion of a person who's giving it freely, not carelessly, for your improvement and for the improvement of the GCC. I
Depends on
don't
what we
matter.
decide.
Exactly.
Stacy, what are you thinking there?
So, because I know Jazz will know where I'm coming from, or I trust that he will know where I'm coming from, I'm going to just shift a little bit. And Jaswinder, I'm going to ask you, what in Colin do you see in yourself? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Nothing in particular.
No. Hold on a second. Everybody is reflecting something back to ourselves. So if you go deeper, I know that you will be able to. I know that with you in particular. I wouldn't ask this of somebody else. I'm asking you because I know you can find that place in yourself where you are similar to him?
I can tell you what, I've said that to him already. Sorry, I misinterpreted your question. He's frustrated.
No, I want to hear
I'm
you.
frustrated because he's frustrated and he's spreading that frustration. And then I get frustrated because he keeps repeating that which is frustrating him.
But
He
you're still
wants to
talking about
alleviate
him.
it.
My question to you is, take Colin out of the equation.
Okay.
What is inside of you that's similar to what is in what you see as inside of Colin? There's something that's inside of you that's the same as what's
He's at the
bothering you.
position where I was many years ago, where I was closed-minded. I wouldn't listen. I wouldn't do the necessary, what was it, the reading or whatever, and say, well, I know what I know, and that's enough. And that is the picture I keep getting from Colin, and that he genuinely wants to help.
But
And
that's
he
something.
wants to record it like I do. But that frustration that he keeps banding about, it resonates with me.
So
Now,
what?
I got a
yesterday-
question. I got a question. Our agreement's important. I said it wasn't important to me. It is very important to me, but that particular
Be
discussion was
more-
not mine.
Be more specific. Agreement about what?
Oh, bingo. So we have to have a further discussion. I agree, as opposed to assuming that I'm not listening.
Because if
That's
you're
good.
going to ask me
So
a
yes,
general
I wanted to
question,
hear what I wanted to hear what Doug had to say about does have a leadership authority position for his show, whether we are egalitarian
him.
or not.
ask him.
We did. Sam asked him, and that's what I was following up on.
It's
Sam's
important to you, if it's that
I think it's
important.
important.
Never mind Sam, but I'm going to do what Stacy did. If it's important to you and it's resonating inside you, for you to alleviate yourself out of that position, you go and ask him. When he appears
Okay, let me
ask him.
set this up for you, James. Let me set this up for you. Let's start with the premise and the context, and let's not make this long. We're at the GCC.
It's
We're at the GCC.
1832. Time it.
Yeah, okay, sure. We're at the GCC, okay, and we have barn raising and unblocking. So each of those has a different type of format to it. If you try to do barn raising stuff at unblocking, you're going to be rightfully stopped. We're not here about projects. We want to, it's more of a soulful, what's blocking you, not let's try to solve it right now.
Can I
But
stop
let's try-
you?
Split
I don't know if that's true.
Split
That might not be true. That might not be
say one thing at a time. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm saying
you're going to
there's a
confuse you
difference.
and you're going to confuse everybody.
No, I'm just saying there's a difference
Say
between
something and
barn
stop.
raising and I
Oh,
experienced.
stop that.
Hold on. I
Stop.
experienced. Holy fuck! I experienced. Jazz, just shut your mouth for a minute, okay? Because it's really not helping.
Well, if you're
So-
going to swear, then that gives me the right to swear. And if you're
Go
going
ahead
to
and swear,
say
but
more than one thing at
wait
a
until
time,
I'm done and then swear. Don't swear
one
over me.
thing,
That's
one
So I
thing.
think-
bad man.
Hold on, stop. Because I'm pretty sure Jazz Winder knows this already, but you both are
Yeah.
mirroring each other.
Yeah.
But
Very
Jazz,
much
I'm trying to
so.
speak.
but here's,
I'm trying to speak.
I know
I'm
you
trying
are.
to be understood.
I
Jazz doesn't want to hear it.
Colin, I understand what you're trying to do. What I just want to point out is that both of you right now are coming from two different places. Jazz absolutely knows that he's trying to mirror you, but you are not recognizing that. You're just getting mad at him because you see him as just
I'm not getting mad.
acting like
I'm
that.
getting frustrated. Not at the
Frustrated.
GCC, but I'm getting frustrated at Jazz particularly, not
Right.
the GCC.
I
My-
see that. And
Yeah,
where
okay.
I disagree with Jazz Winder is that he's feeding it even harder because
Oh,
he's getting, that's where I disagree because, and Jazz Winder, you and I have had this conversation before.
Not helpful at all.
Different people. For somebody like me, that approach might be really good. Or even Glenn, that works with Glenn. But Colin's wired differently. And you just wind up antagonizing the situation. That's how I personally feel. I look at my
That
kids.
doesn't count towards my time.
Say it again. I'm sorry. No, it doesn't count
That
towards
doesn't
your
count.
time. So
Yeah.
rather than defending your position, just try to stick with the point, because he's not
Yes.
going to hear you, because he's purposely trying to show you. He wants, just say what you need to say without defending yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah. That's difficult.
And
But
then
I
you
agree.
need to say what
The
you
point-
specifically want. I think that's central.
Yeah. Well, this
you
is
just
well. It's getting
you
a
make
little
that
difficult.
clear.
It's getting a little difficult. If I
You want
can't
a
speak for a
conversation
minute
with
straight, it's
them.
impossible. No, I want to know if Sam still wants to follow up as what I consider the motivating force, the glue of the barn raising segment. Doug is the motivating force and the glue of the unblocking. My understanding of the blocking is relevant, but not relevant to what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to understand better so it becomes more relevant. If Doug nods his head and says, yes, you got it now, Colin, then I got it. But if you can't ask these questions, then you can't ever get there. And just to say I'm not there is not helpful, Jazz. So we already know that. And so without going into what Stacy said, let's just talk about what it is. What it is that I saw, and I keep bringing it up, but I don't have or have put the proper time in to hold this up as a meme so that when I say 3 words, you know exactly what I mean. I say 3 words and you assume something else. So then I have to explain that that's not what I mean. What I really need is that chunk of tape, not the transcript. I don't want any transcript. I want the tape where Sam and Doug were doing that and where I suggested a solution and Sam said, that's a great idea. I support that. That's all you need to know, Jazz. That's it. And then you can follow up from that point and help me figure a way to do that. Like Stacy did.
I'm sure
like
you
Stacy
can get
did.
them to do
Hold on,
tomorrow.
Glenn. Hold on, Glenn. Well, no, I'm not bringing it up tomorrow because that would be repeating what I've said 100 times. I want to follow up with Sam and make sure I'm doing it right. I want to follow up with Stacy and see if it's important. I assumed it was important because they said it was important. I assumed it was aligned because they were saying it was aligned.
So I think what
But once
Jazz,
you
what
actually-
you're saying is if it's not important to you, then drop, then wait. Now it may become
What's important to me?
important to you.
What's important to me, very good question, is the ability to have the conversations and say, yes, I want to have this conversation. And it happens, a moderator appears, a data butler appears, and the conversation is had. And you can be open knowing that you're trying to figure it out, not try to do what Jazz just did to me the last 20 minutes. That was not helpful. What Stacy did was very helpful. She said,
But I'm
well,
still
is there
not
another way to go about
understanding
that?
what specifically you want to happen, Colin. Do you want them to have a special session where
I don't think it's my individual desire. It's not my individual desire.
And that's the answer. That's the answer, Colin. If it's not your individual desire, let it pass until circumstances change and it becomes your individual desire. Because the truth is,
no, my
let
individual.
me tell you why.
Hold on.
Let me just finish my sentence. If they had wanted to have the conversation, it would have happened.
No, Sam tried to have the conversation, and I said, how can we have a tool to facilitate this? Because I can see a use for this above and beyond the GCC where this
But
happened.
Colin, they did have a conversation. Sam, Doug, and Tammy, they had a special conversation where they specifically went into that question of agreements. So there was one session. It's true. I
And when was
remember
that?
it was
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
It was Josh who suggested it. They had,
Right.
and
Sam wasn't satisfied with that. So we were taking a conversation based off of that conversation. One conversation isn't necessarily always going to do it, especially if you have no way of tracking it.
But if Sam
I want
wasn't,
to have understanding, however that happens. Jazz is saying there's no understanding. I appreciate that. He's right about that for sure.
but I think that if Sam wasn't satisfied, Sam would have let that be known, and Sam would have led to
He
what
did let it be known, and I said, hey, I got an idea. If Sam's not satisfied, and Doug, and they got a different idea, and they are taking up the spotlight and the momentum of the GCC with this, can we revisit this? And the fact that maybe it's just in my memory that it's important, is kind of makes me stop and think, gee, is this really important or not? What is important to me is the fact that we can have these conversations. And when we have people who are becoming controversial or troublemakers, they get appropriately rewarded for it. And they have to say why they're doing that. I really wonder why Jazz is kicking up so much dirt. Is it to get me to be quiet, or is it to get me to be
No,
more
he's
on
trying to
point?
help you. He's actually trying to help you.
don't
I
see it.
know that.
Yeah, well, in his own way, maybe, but
I
it's
think
a
we're
style
all
that's
trying
not
to
working.
help. I mean, we're all trying to help one way or another.
But that doesn't mean we're all
Anyway,
helping.
what would have really helped me is if Sam could have commented on the germane point of which the context I was talking, not to have Jazz's impression of what it was I was trying to do. That would have helped, because that would have followed the actual conversation in context along. Again, it wasn't my baby.
Accusations. I'm accusing you
Well,
again.
that's true.
Making accusations, and then you don't.
I'm not making accusations. You did it. You admitted to it.
Oh, hold
You
on.
said, yes, I'm doing it on purpose.
Hold on.
Anyway, I got to go.
Shut the fuck up and listen. That's what you
Don't
want.
go anywhere.
You want me to listen, I listen. You just accused me of something, didn't you?
Yes.
Right.
Something you already admitted
Why
to.
don't you give me the time to pick up that accusation and answer you back?
Well, go ahead. Go ahead. But you already admitted to it. So now you're going to explain to us why you did it. If you explain to us why you're doing it, that could be useful.
First question. Oh, you want an explanation? Because I want you to be much better than you are right now. You have a brilliant brain.
Well, then let Sam answer when I bring him into the conversation.
Wait a minute. I'm talking about you and me. Don't deviate. You're asking me why I'm doing what I'm doing to you. Nothing to do with Sam. I am of the opinion that you have a brilliant brain as demonstrated by the technology you use and the amount of memory it takes to use that technology. You've also demonstrated several times, umpteen times, that your mind is closed on certain subjects. And you will not discuss those subjects. And when those subjects are being discussed, you try to deviate the whole session. That's what I'm accusing you of. Okay?
Yeah, there was a time.
I haven't
I agree.
You're doing it
well, just
again.
hold on. That's enough. That's enough to start with. Because
That's enough
we can
to
agree
start
on
with.
Okay? Fine.
That's more than
let's
enough.
just let me say that I used to have an aversion to people trying to make decisions or impressions about stuff that they don't know what they're talking about. And what it is faith. If people want to make decisions based on faith, I have a hard time with that. Yes, I do. But I also believe that there's a realm for spirituality and human things that science has nothing to do with. But it isn't
That's
environment.
2 items.
That's not environment. And I gave up on that. And I even said last time,
item.
I let
First
those go
item on the agenda between what I said was that item 1 is I'm genuinely trying to help you. You've ignored that. You've gone straight to item 2, and you should stop. Say your little phrase and stop. And the word that comes
But just because you're trying to help doesn't mean you succeed,
is
of
the
course.
word faith. And you took that word and you started putting on a whole shell around that word. The people who don't know what they're talking about.
What word?
The word faith.
Faith.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. People of faith. Now.
Well, define faith. Define faith.
Wait. I picked up a word that you have used several times, and you have a little kernel around it that you think is a good answer. I am not talking, if I talk about religion, I don't talk from faith. I talk from experience. Now, this is the point I make here clearly. When you make an accusation, be accurate, give the other person time to answer, because each single word is very important. It has an exact meaning or modulated meaning in the context. Okay? For you to keep—
And it can be refined. It can be refined.
For you to keep using the same answer every time and skipping through it to other co-junctions is your way of avoiding talking about something which is extremely deep, and there are at least 4 billion people who one way or another are involved in it, and they're just as passionate as
Doesn't make it
scientists
right.
about scientists. Then I would.
We can have that discussion later, Jazz. You're starting to get into details. Let's get out of the details.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. The devil is in the detail.
It's a long
If you
discussion.
don't go in the detail, like you want one word defining, then we will not go forward. You have to be open
to me,
about
faith is taking the Christian Bible explains faith as believing something that you can't see, taking it on faith.
What about people who've
so stuff
seen
there's
it?
no evidence for it. Where
So
there's
what
no
about
evidence,
people-
that's
No,
what faith.
that is a miss.
What about
That's
people
wrong,
who've
that's
seen
fine.
it? What about people who do see it today and they've written about it?
Where then you say, where's the evidence, right?
You
so it's a
say
long
that,
discussion.
but you haven't looked for the evidence.
No,
I
no.
have.
Well, I would like to see your evidence and why you haven't won a Nobel Prize, and that's
Now
what
you
would be
don't,
the evidence?
you don't want to.
For
You don't want
day.
to do the research I've spent 27 years doing, and you want it presented
Well,
to
that's
you.
fine. I don't mean to belittle your research, but I'm not the guy to bring it to.
But
I
you're
only have
not
a
the
small
only one who's
opinion.
making this. There are people who preach and they don't know
Okay,
what those
hold
scriptures mean.
on. I think as long as people, like Sam says, can coexist without hurting anybody, you can believe whatever you want. But when you start teaching my children that they have to believe this to be true, that's when I have
Stop
to. When you say
there.
what
I
books can go into
stop again.
school,
Stop.
Everyone knows
You're
that. Everyone knows that,
increasing your base to accusing me of teaching your children.
no. I'm saying when people of
You
faith
said
do
that
that,
right
not
now.
you, Chad.
But I object when people
No.
start teaching my children, meaning your children.
Okay,
You
hold
see, you
on,
say
Chad.
things
The fair question.
that are general, and I want to see what you're holding in your head. Is it accurate? Is it pertaining to Colin? And is it sayable so that it can be answered, not just skimmed over and say, I don't believe it because there's no evidence. I don't want to look for it. If you got the evidence, give it to me. And why haven't you got an OBE? You see how many things the junk you're
I'm just
carrying
saying.
in your
For
head.
example, what
You
would
keep
evidence
throwing
look
it.
Randy,
like? What
it's a
would
long discussion.
evidence-
It's a very interesting discussion.
So what
Yeah,
would an
And
evidence
that word,
for
one of my-
interesting, what does that mean?
superintelligence
What does it mean to
be
you?
I don't.
What would
Interesting
an
I
means it
think to have-
rouses
evidence
something,
be?
it rouses your curiosity so that you want to look for more evidence or read more or do something with it. But you use it like a bullet and
This is
forget
a great-
about it. It has no interest
Okay.
for you. It has the exact
That's
opposite.
not true. That's not true. Not
But
true.
in the
Not
last
true.
2 years, how much have you read about it?
Let me just say this. I'm interested in a
This
way to have this
formal
conversation.
questioning, Jaswinder,
This is-
doesn't work,
look,
so you should change
If you
the
don't look
formula.
for evidence to
Hold
refute
on.
what I
Thanks,
say,
Glenn.
the exact
Are you still
opposite.
talking, Jazz? Are you still talking? Give me a second. God.
Go
So,
ahead.
What
I
I'm
asked
interested
you
in
what would
is a
be
way.
evidence for superintelligence.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that. What I want to do is to have a forum where Jazz could bring his evidence and I could discuss it and we would be friendly about it. And the way that we discuss it, and where do we put that information when Jazz says it? Where do we put that on the map? Where do we put my comment on the map? And what does everybody else think about that? And how do we take that forward the next week? Hold on.
No.
That's what
There's a
I'm
whole lot
interested
of
in.
information
That's what I'm
there,
doing here.
all
Hold
about.
on.
You're telling me to bring the evidence and present it to
No.
you.
No, I'm telling you to bring your
In the
conversation,
context
whether it
that
has evidence or
you
not, it's
want
up
it.
to you.
That is not
No.
improving
I'm
you.
saying- You're talking. Let's stop talking about religion. Let's stop talking about agreements. Let's talking about a way that we could discuss a topic.
Go ahead.
That's what I'm interested in.
If that's a good suggestion, a
Go
way
ahead.
we
I
could
just
discuss
said
a
it. How
topic,
do we discuss
we
a topic?
schedule
Right.
a conversation
Right.
for a specific date on a specific topic with a certain person playing that,
Right.
that
And
role.
now, thank you.
Schedule it.
Thank you, Glenn.
That is the solution. Okay, it's not
No, it's
more
not.
complicated
It's not
than
the
that.
solution.
Schedule
Stacy
the
had the
date.
solution.
The people say
No,
yes.
Stacy had the
We go
solution.
there. We have that event. It happens. Your dream comes true. Your dream
No,
comes
no,
true.
no, no, no. I tried it.
Sure.
I tried it. It didn't work. What do you think my comment was today, Glenn? My comment was I tried to do that with other
Do what?
people's concerns.
Well,
Do
we
what?
can
tried to
try it
get-
again.
Do what? Be specific.
What
Try to do
Stacy said, hey, I did what Stacy said I should try to find a
What?
better way to do. She was listening. She asked me, is there a better way you could do that? She was listening.
That was
Wasn't
one
she?
phrase. That was one question. That is not
That's it.
sufficient to base the
All
whole.
I said is I can bring
And
the
I'm
tools. I
accusing
can bring the
you of
tools,
something different.
and you wouldn't recognize it. All that I said is that I could bring the tools to the table and people wouldn't even recognize it. I could set up a T-ball,
ahead.
nobody will hit it.
Go ahead, bring
did
them.
it.
Let's see if we recognize them
I
or
tried.
not.
No,
I'm calling
I
your
need
bluff. Bring it.
You know what would
I
be,
already tried to
Colin?
do it.
You know what would really,
I already tried to do it one way. I have to try another way.
Go
you
ahead.
know what
The
would
way I
be
was trying
really
to do it
helpful? A
It was
tool.
with Sam.
What would be really helpful would be a tool to show when somebody goes off of the fact into their emotions, into defending.
Totally.
That's
Totally,
the
that's
tool.
part of it,
That's the
Stacey.
tool we need.
That's what you
Yeah,
mentioned
well, I
before.
saw
The
that before I
people
joined
adapter.
GCC.
One thing you
Yeah,
mentioned
that's what I
before,
was after
Colin,
with-
is the
Yeah.
people adapter. So I'm
Exactly.
just trying to get this back on track because I think we've been all over the place. But
Well, I
that's something
gotta go.
you've
I've said it all
mentioned.
before. I'm
But the
sorry I had
people
to spend so
adapter,
much
I think,
energy
ties in
explaining
with
it
the
to Jazz.
points that Jazz has been talking
I gotta-
about as well. So yeah.
Before you go,
Anyway.
Colin, I just want to say one thing. What would be helpful is if people were very careful to stick to the fact without adding the judgment after.
That's accusing you, Colin.
And you,
No, she isn't.
Directed to you.
Everyone,
I
No,
accuse
no.
you of the
it's
same
really
stuff.
directed
It's
towards
people.
most people. It's really directed.
Yeah, but
I'm
Jazz,
directed
I am
to
very
you. He
careful
does it
towards
every
that.
time.
No, I
Every
defend
single
myself when
time.
somebody attacks me.
No,
No, I said I tried. What have you done, Jazz? What have you done to try? I just said I tried something, it didn't work. Then you go, oh, you
Okay.
want to turn everybody
Name the
Look,
thing. You,
forget it, man.
one little try is
Another
not
day.
enough.
Another day. I gotta go. I got
All
obligations
right.
and stuff I gotta do.
okay.
See you
Have
later.
a good day there.
I think you got my point.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again, Jazz. And nice to see you
Yeah.
got some fire in
Always
the belly.
good to
I like
have you
that.
with us
Okay.
there, Colin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep
Hard
it
to be
going.
understood.
It's
Very
called
hard. It's all
interest,
about being understood.
curiosity.
should we check
Always
out? Should we
learning.
start? Why don't we have a checkout? Why don't we all
Okay.
stay on and just check out together? Trust me, it's a better
Colin
idea.
just checked out, I think.
Yeah, I just checked out.
let's do that.
Yeah, I would definitely like to find a better way for us to find ways to agree and understand. And there's tools involved in that, but I think it has a lot to do with attitude and people who are in the conversation being aware of what the conversation actually is, as opposed to bringing in their biases and emotion. Although some conversations are just riddled with emotion. And those
Absolutely.
conversations are the ones
I
Jazz
agree
mentioned,
with all of that.
religion. This is my
I
checkout,
agree.
Jazz.
That's something we all agree on,
The
actually.
very same
Yeah.
thing.
Get rid of
Yeah,
those
well,
biases and judgments.
There's nothing wrong in being consistent, Jazz. There's nothing wrong with that.
I agree. Be
All
consistent.
right, well, let's get some other people to be consistent, and that's what you call a process.
I'm not
or a
worried
system.
about the other people. They don't concern me. Only you.
Well, I'll tell you what concerns me when I try to bring a hammer and everybody throws the nails over the bridge.
Ah,
Just
but
doesn't
what's
help.
needed here is a screwdriver.
Well, that's to be decided, but it's hard to know when you just take the toolbox and throw that over.
Maybe
too.
you're bringing a flat hammer when we need a plain hammer or a nail
Maybe
puller.
you're being provocative. Maybe you're being provocative again. Instead of asking me what do I need, you're telling me what I do.
You're telling me. I'm just reiterating
No,
what you
no.
just said in a
You
slightly
definitely
different
threw-
way. You say I bring a
You
hammer
definitely threw-
and you bring something else, and I'm telling you what I
I'm
brought.
telling you, Stacy's response was appropriate. Yours was not, to help me.
Yeah,
That's my
I
opinion.
agree.
Okay. Well, then
Stacey,
Sometimes even if you
provocative.
want to
Her
try to
hammer,
help,
she
you
doesn't
don't
have
always
a hammer.
agree.
I'm the one with the hammer.
I have
Yeah.
a hammer. I threw my hammer away.
Hey!
I used to have a
I
hammer.
gotta go.
I threw it away
Okay.
because it wasn't working.
have a good day
He
there,
told
Colin.
you.
Anyway, let's do a small checkout. Yeah, I mean, today for me it's been all over the place, not really into subjects that are
Then
so
you've
easy
said
for me
that
to
50 times
understand.
already.
Yes,
Get to your
so
checkout,
I'll
please.
get to the checkout. Co-visioning would be fun to go into in terms of translating all the things we've talked about today into, for example, specific wants, and then we could build on those. And then those who are interested can go further.
Give me 2 minutes.
So in that sense, all of this material also could perhaps be inverted. But in any case, I mean, I also think I'm listening to what you're saying, and when I'm not really understanding it, it's also a very peculiar feeling, because then things sink in, and yeah, so it's also kind of interesting that it goes in these weird directions too, because at least I see a lot of reactions in myself and others that are different from the habitual thing. And I mean, yeah, and I think I understand that now better with Jaswinder, because that's why you want to provoke like you've been doing today, because you feel that we're sort of in this habitual mode, right? And yeah, I feel that too, but at the same time, I guess there's many ways one could do it. And I
Two
think
and a half years at the same conundrum is long, much more
but
than.
also, Jaswinder, some people are sensitive, and one has to be careful in how
If
one
they're
speaks to them.
immature, then who's going to make them mature? If his daddy
Well,
didn't do it, somebody else is going to play daddy.
One needs to at least be
If you talk about like he does,
considerate.
the appropriate methodology, are you accusing me of not considering and not using all available methods in the last 2.5 years?
I understand that you
Joshua
get
has been
upset
talking
about
with him
that.
in private, and we've had a three-way conversation. That man does not budge, and he uses the same words, the same phrases. Therefore, I have taken it upon myself, after keeping away for a number of weeks, that was not going to be the way I, Jaswinder Singh Chagger, is going to continue to listen to that particular man. And then I included you as well, because you and him much more so than anybody else, starts talking about, he picks up one little kernel from the general conversation, and he wants to go and talk about Trello, and he wants to talk about his mapping, and how he can help the GCC. He has the tools, implication, innuendo, that nobody else has the tools. And when you say, and when he says, when I say, I'm interested, that means I'm willing to do something. I'm curious. I'm hungry. I want to eat. Not just say, oh, that's interesting. What is this, a flipping hen evening? I'm interested in getting married. Yeah, what are you doing about it? Oh, nothing yet. Then you're not interested, are you?
But we're interested in learning something, right?
Exactly.
We're all interested.
You're not
in
going to
truth.
learn if you're going to keep repeating the same phrases.
I know.
And if you're not
And
willing to pick up a book or even open up a website or even ask, he never once asked me, well, where did you get your information from? Present your information is his dialogue. He is the scientist, and science is about digging for information. I don't see him being a scientist. It's a ruse. It's a way of getting out of doing something other than what he wants to be doing, which is mapping information that is being supplied, and he wants it supplied in a certain fashion that he can understand.
So are we talking about a habitual behaviors? Habitual behaviors that
Is
there's a
that your
pattern of
understanding?
behaviors.
Is that
Yeah,
your
pattern of,
understanding?
yes, it's a pattern
Then
of
own it
behaviors.
and say, I think or I know.
And attitudes and thoughts.
My attitude is strict, yes.
But we're conditioned to have certain habitual
I am not going
responses,
to
right?
allow anybody to hide behind well, let's be nice to each other, even if it means we don't deal with the truth or the facts. That's
Of
hiding.
course, of course.
He's hiding. He's hiding his lack of knowledge. And he
But
doesn't want to get any. He
it's-
wants it supplied
But-
so he
but
can disagree with it because science doesn't have any proof. He doesn't even
The
know.
problem is when you start accusing him, you see, because he's
What do you want me to
sensitive.
do? Be nice to him
Not,
so we can spend another
don't
year
accuse him
listening to him
personally.
talking about Trello?
No,
Stacy.
ask him specific questions, for example.
I did. He
Yeah,
avoids
but
them.
without accusing him personally, because
If
it
he
can be taken.
accuses two people of not holding a meeting that he wants to be holding, to be held, so he's present to record it, and he wants help with that, and he has no strategy of bringing that about, but he wants help, and he doesn't want the help that being proffered to him. What the heck are you going to do?
Well, that's what's a little unclear. He wants Doug and Sam to have a meeting and
He wants
clarify
somebody
some
else
things,
to do it.
and he wants somebody else to do it. That's
So
all.
we're back around
So
the
we're-
same problem
I
again.
know
I
what you
want
mean.
that doing, but I don't want to do it.
Yes.
You do it.
So
Tomorrow
therefore,
is an ideal opportunity, a nice, gentle conversation. Oh, by the way, Doug, I hear that your meaning of the word agreement is not the same as the word agreement. Is not the same meaning as Dougie's word meaning for the word agreement. Perhaps we could have a little conversation about that.
yeah, and it might be an interesting one.
See,
I mean,
now there you are. You see,
you
I
have to
put
schedule
those
it.
words together quite nicely and gently, and if I were interested, which I am, not on that particular word, but other phrases and things with Dougie, I bring them up with Dougie direct.
Yeah, I feel that.
Okay? And because we are building a common dictionary, Alexian, if you like, we're having a deeper conversations. And I'm going to give way to Stacy. She's been very patient. I want to marry
Yeah, Stacy, you have the final word here now, so say anything you
He
like.
hasn't answered my question yet. Will you marry me?
I want to make no. I want to make a statement.
Why?
I appreciate that. I wish more people felt like you. Okay. So I just want to pull away from Jaswinder and from Colin and just say in general, we have, I don't know if it's half the population, but a
Mike,
great,
can you hold the mic closer?
oh, you can't hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I had asked earlier about what you see in Colin in yourself, I believe there is a large number of people operating in the world today that want to help. They think they see a solution for something, and they decide it's up to them to act on it. They may or may not be right on that.
Absolutely.
But of course, they are positive they are.
Absolutely.
So to me, but that's where, to me, I see the similarity with you and Colin. So Colin's operating under the assumption that him facilitating this conversation between Sam and Doug is exactly what's necessary to bring about better circumstances. Similarly, Jaswinder is 100% convinced that by poking at Colin, he can bring about positive change. So my question is, and I don't disagree with you, and I understand what you're saying, but what I would also offer up is that maybe that's when we vote with our attention. Maybe when we see that someone is not doing it the right way, we just, I mean, I had somebody in my life that would call me and complain constantly. And in the beginning, I'd give advice and I'd give advice. The person never listened. It wasn't going to happen no matter what. If I took Jazzwinder's approach, the only thing it would have done would have made things blow up even more. So the approach I took was changing my own behavior, which was not having the time to deal with it. So I moved away. I took my attention away. That person then knew that they either deal with me on my terms or they don't at all. And as long as the person's not doing harm to somebody else, maybe that's not my business. And I think that's where both Doug and Sam agree that they don't want to impose their will on somebody else. So those were the statements I wanted to make. But I did.
That is clear. That is something they have both said, yes.
But
that
I
they
do have a
don't wanna
question for
impose.
Jazzwinder. Can you go back to when you were like that and tell me, like, what made you change? Like, what helped you learn? Because I also had that way that I was going to make this happen. I know how my learning evolved. I'm curious if you know what made that switch in you, where you recognized that maybe you didn't. Whatever you said before about how you learned, what made that happen?
I was becoming more and more aware, and I wanted the deeper conversations and not stock answers, which is what Colin is full of. So the majority listen, have some water, soda water. So
But what triggered that change in you is what I'm
came
asking.
down that I was reading the same scriptures, which is my religion, as my mother, and she had stock answers like everybody else on certain questions. And if I asked her, well, where is that? And she would tell me that it's in the large, the Granth. The Granth, it just means a very large book. So it's our scripture book. It's 1430 pages. And everybody else, for a number of years, I got the stock answers, the very same answers from all people, even people who should know better. I then decided I really had to read that book. And I started one night, took it to bed with me, 4 volumes, volume 1, and I started reading first paragraph, and I found it extremely hard. So I thought, not to worry, I'm a clever cloggy. To cut a long story short, I persevered, and I started reading that book several times. And then one night I thought, okay, strategy. 4 pages every night or whenever I can. It's going to work out to about 10, 11 months, but 1 hour every night if possible, 4 pages, 1 hour to read and understand and make notes. I made that decision that I would spend that 10, 11 months or the year and do that. So for all those months, every night I went to bed an hour earlier than normal. And I started going even earlier than that because making notes was taking longer. And I spent that time, and it really did rouse my interest. So I went to the library and I borrowed books on other religions and their main scriptures. And I'm going back a long time. It might have been the other way around, it matters not. I then enrolled at the university, psychology, sociology, religion, or humanity, yep, paid the money. And I haven't stopped since then. And whatever psychology is saying, physiology is saying, there are so many connections between the knowledge of the old, the enlightened ones, and the knowledge that's here now. It's mind-bogglingly good.
So if I could just jump in, because I have to get off now. We've run really past. But I just want to say that, and I can relate to this, that motivation came from within. You
Yeah.
decided that you wanted to know for sure, and you were.
No, this is
and-
totally the other way around. I
right.
was doing it from my own curiosity and things Mum said. And it became an obsession
Right.
that they're giving me these answers, but they're misreading or misrepresenting the scripture. They don't understand, and they're telling me I don't understand.
Right. No, I hear you. But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is it was your curiosity. But the other thing I want to say, and because I think having had enough conversations with Colin, and because he's not here, I just want to say on his behalf that I think also what got him a little bit is he feels he has grown in some ways. He started to say,
He's grown, in the 2 years, he's grown tremendously.
absolutely,
Yeah.
but I don't,
Otherwise, I
Take
wouldn't
it
be
easy
talking
now,
with him
guys.
like this today. I'd
Jaswinder,
ignore him.
so all I'm saying, and then I really do have to go, is that I think part of his reaction was, and I can relate to this because I felt it many times, I don't mean with you, but in general,
Okay.
part of his reaction is, you don't see how I've grown? Because I
do.
know, but I'm just telling you how I believe he was feeling inside.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you because I
He's being
know that
belittled
he
for
has
the very same reason.
I
He's got
know
no
he has told,
motivation.
I know he has told me many times that he has gone to some of the meetings that he didn't really feel interested in, but that he wants to learn and he wants to understand. And I think that, I want it on tape that he really has grown, and that he, part of the problem we get into in any conversation, I don't mean just outside of here, is that we always feel like we're not being seen. And it's hard for us to stick to the topic because we want to say, but wait a minute, you don't understand what I really mean.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Everyone
that-
wants to bring their gifts, right?
Right.
And they never feel that they have enough space for it.
Right. So anyway, I really have to leave now.
Yeah. Anyway, it's always great to have you
Conversation.
here, Stacy. I mean, you asked so many great questions to navigate these complex topics, and what it is, a real
Why
learning
is it
experience.
so hard
to go
just
through.
to say bye? It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Why is it
We-
hard?
No, we
I
have
don't want to. It's not hard. It's very
Stacey
easy.
has to
You
go.
That's
made
not
me
what I
go
want.
quiet, and then
What?
you're now prolonging it.
Stacy
me?
has to go. No,
Him.
no.
Oh, him.
Me. I'm just saying bye now. So thanks, guys. Always great to see you,
Goodbye.
and have a
You
great
had your
Saturday.
checkout.
No, I had mine. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye, Jaswinder.